Chapter 295. The transit string wasn't as arrogant as everyone imagined. On the contrary, she seemed approachable. She smiled and waved at Yin and Liu. I remember you too. You're Yin and you're Liu. When you came to Star Rainbow to report after graduation, I happened to be at the Blue Moon branch. What could Yin say? He was so excited that his Adam's apple was twitching. He couldn't speak at all. Liu, however, bowed politely. Miss Ling, thank you for remembering me. He, Ministerly, in fact, we're all of the same rank. You don't have to be so polite. The transit string smiled and pointed to her badge. The delicate crystal blue words were flashing. Assistant to the Ministry of Energy, transit string. Liu was indeed of the same rank as her. There was no distinction between superiors and subordinates. But in front of Miss Ling, who in Star Rainbow dared to claim to be of the same rank as her. Seeing the two people's restrained expressions, the transit string smiled again. Minister Yin, it's so late. Everyone has worked hard for a day. There's no need to wait for me. Let everyone go back and rest. I didn't come to the Blue Moon branch in the name of work at the headquarters. I came here to deal with some personal matters. Since she set the tone, Yin could only comply. He turned around and told everyone to disperse. The transit string then said, Minister Li, please stay here alone. Sister Mengxing, please lead the way. The others can stay here and wait for me. She said that the others would stay, but there was still an old man in a suit following behind her. Obviously, this was a master who protected her. After the four people entered the shuttle ladder on the first floor, Liu carefully said, Miss Ling, which area do you want to go to? She was already mentally prepared. The transit string came to the Blue Moon branch. The area she wanted to go to was probably the core areas of energy survey, technology research and development, and market trade. Who knew that the transit string suddenly said, to the energy research and development area. Liu had already pulled out the moving map inside the shuttle ladder. His fingers stopped between the 30th and 40th floor. Miss Ling, which floor do we go to first? Su Mengxing smiled and said, the 31st floor. Liu was stunned. There is only one department on the 31st floor, Energy R&D Department 9. This was known as the Cold Palace. It was Mr. Cuddle's territory. Usually, only Liu would interact with him. Other people would not even stay on the 31st floor, let alone look for Cuddle. Could it be that Miss Ling went to look for Mr. Cuddle? Liu did not dare to ask more and obediently activated the ascending command, and the shuttle ladder quickly ascended. As she was the transit string, she had the highest level of security clearance. As soon as she arrived at Department 9, the alloy door opened automatically. The situation inside made her dumbfounded. Ding Ming was holding a large hammer and smashing a metal block. The dang 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 sound were very shocking. Cuddle was seriously guiding him. That's right. If you use too much force, it will rebound. If you use too much force, it won't move. If you use too little force, it won't move. You have to use moderate force. Hercules' embryo used this principle when fusing. They thought it was high-end technology, but in fact, it was just a trick. There was no technical content at all. Hey, why did you smash my cup, you idiot? Mr. Cuddle. Liu quickly walked over. Cuddle looked up at her and said lightly, Oh, it's Xiaoyu. Take a seat first. I'll guide Ding Ming. Liu came forward with a smile on his face. Mr. Cuddle, Miss Ling is here. Cuddle was a little impatient. I told you to take a seat first. If there's anything, wait until I'm done here. Liu wanted to remind him, but he was pulled back by the transit string. The transit string smiled and said, Don't disturb them. We'll just wait. If she wanted to wait, then everyone had to wait together. They stood in the middle of the hall for 2 whole hours. In these 2 hours, Ling Xingxian and the old man in the suit were like ice sculptures, not moving an inch. However, Su Mengxing wasn't a combat type origin ability user. After standing for a while, her waist and back began to ache. Thus, she was supported by Liu to the side to rest. After 3 hours and 11 minutes, Ding Ming's blacksmithing activity finally ended. Cuddle stroked his beard with satisfaction. Not bad. Now you can clearly see the composition of the stripes. The next time you encounter any test subjects, it will be as easy as cutting tofu. Ding Ming hurriedly thanked him. Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Cuddle. Cuddle immediately shook his head and wasn't modest at all. Of course, it's your fortune to have met an old man like me. I can be considered half a teacher to you. Where can you find such a great teacher like me? It's not that I'm talking nonsense, but those bastards from Shanghai have always been stealing chickens. How can they be innovative? As soon as he finished speaking, the old man in the suit finally coldly said, Love addict from class 12? You call yourself a teacher? I think you're just an old man. Look at your current state. Where did your high-spirited self go? Love addict was his nickname. Only the students from Starlight knew about it. Cuddle was angry when he heard it. Which idiot is exposing my shortcomings behind my back? The old man in the suit stared at him. Open your eyes and see who I am. Cuddle turned his head and carefully looked. I was wondering who you were. So it's Tong Ma. Why you look so old? Why do you have so much white hair? He called him by his nickname, but the old man in the suit wasn't angry. He coldly said, Love addict, stop pretending. Miss Ling is here. Cuddle then noticed the existence of the transit string. He definitely wasn't unfamiliar with this person. Even if he hadn't seen her in person, he should have seen her photo in the internal systems executive list. Among the 3 young ladies of the Ling family, the transit string was ranked second. Among the 3 of them, she was the most outstanding one. However, Cuddle didn't like the people in the upper echelons. His tone wasn't friendly either. Little girl, what are you doing here? The transit string smiled and said, I'm here because of your reputation. Cuddle's face was full of self-mockery. After so many years, I didn't expect myself to still be so famous. He was naturally referring to the matter of him being betrayed by his girlfriend. At least in Starlight and Starlight, this matter had a huge impact. Starlight Corporation didn't need to talk about it, but Starlight was a school after all. The atmosphere in the school was relatively simple. This matter affected the mentality of many ordinary students. Everyone thought that even a genius like Cuddle was cheated on. Women nowadays really couldn't be trusted. However, the transit string smiled and replied, Mr. Cuddle, your research on energy can be said to be second to none in the Federation. It's also something that the younger generation, like us, can't compare to. Hearing that she was praising this point, Cuddle's tone softened. Little girl, you know about research too? The transit string smiled and said, Of course I know. I also know that the concept of curved mirror was first proposed by you, Mr. Cuddle. Now, it has been used in many fields. This technology was a very broad concept. Even Ding Meng knew about it. The curved image transmission system was a small branch of it. It would have been fine if the transit string didn't mention it, but when Ding Meng mentioned it, he was truly shocked. It turned out that the old man was so awesome in the field of energy utilization. However, Cuddle suddenly fell silent. Although the transit string was praising him, her words touched his sore spot. Back then, he and Yao Manru were an energy authority, and the other was a mechanical expert. He researched the curved mirror technology. The 2 of them participated in the Night Pearl No. 1 project together. It could be said that they complemented each other well. In the end, because of his girlfriend, he was punished by the Starlight Corporation, and Yao Manru left the Starlight Corporation. It had been so many years, and time had diluted all the love and hatred, leaving behind endless sighs. Now that the old matter was brought up again, Cuddle let out a long sigh and said, Little girl, did Ling Zhixing ask you to come? The transit string stopped smiling and said seriously, Yes. Cuddle's expression also turned serious. You can go back. Please tell him that I thank him for helping me fix this Energy Research and Development Unit 9. The transit string was stunned. She didn't understand what he meant. At this time, Liu walked over with his head lowered and said sadly, Miss Ling, Mr. Cuddle has been in this research institute for 57 years. He has only gone out 3 times. The last time he went out was 17 years ago. At that time, I hadn't even come to Starlight yet. This time, not only was the transit string shocked, even Ding Meng didn't expect that the old man had locked him in here for so long. It was no different from being in prison. However, Ding Meng and the transit string could guess what his purpose was. If they could describe it in one sentence, it would be, his heart was already dead. Originally, he had a bright future ahead of him, But because of that incident, his life was ruined. He was curled up in a corner with no one around, silently licking his wounds. After so many years, perhaps his wounds still hadn't healed yet. Ling Xingxian suddenly bent his waist and bowed respectfully to Cuddle. "Mr. Cuddle, I would like to represent my father to extend my greatest apologies and greetings to you. Your talent should not have been buried like this. It is our Starbao Corporation that owes you too much." Cuddle waved his hand indifferently. "Forget it. It's all in the past." The transit string's tone changed again. She became serious. "Mr. Cuddle, I came to the Blue Moon branch this time with sincerity to visit you." Cuddle glanced at her again. "Visit? What do I have that's worth visiting? This place is broken and rotten. There's nothing good to entertain you." The transit string said seriously, "Mr. Cuddle, I sincerely invite you to work in the energy department of St. Splendor headquarters as the new technical director." Cuddle looked at her with a strange expression. After a while, he said meaningfully, "If I remember correctly, the Federation's Night Luminescent Pearl Project number 4 ended 2 years ago, right? Shenghao Group completed it beautifully." Although he hadn't been out for many years, he was still very clear about the situation in the outside world through the Advanced Information Transmission System. The transit string's expression was a bit unnatural. "Yes," Cuddle continued, "Project number 5 will start in 5 years at most." The transit string immediately straightened her back. "Starlight Group is determined to win this time." Cuddle snorted. "Let me ask you, where does your confidence come from?" The transit string's face couldn't help but turn red. Chapter 296. The Night Luminescent Pearl Project was a series of plans developed by the Federation's higher-ups to explore outer space. From Plan 1 onwards, the Starbao Group had been leading the research and development. Due to Cartel's incident, the leadership had fallen into the hands of the Shenghao Group. The Shenghao Group had taken the lead in Plan 2, 3, and 4. Not only had they earned a huge amount of wealth from the Federation's government, but they had also suppressed the Starbao Group over the years. Now that Plan 5 was about to start, the Starbao Group's higher-ups had learned from their painful experience. This time, no matter what, they could not let the Shenghao Group take the lead again. The transit string was said to be a must-win, but in fact, she knew that the possibility of this was very small. The fundamental reason was that the Starbao Group's development path had begun to take a detour over the years. Although the Starbao Group size was very large, it was involved in too many fields. It was too many but not good, too mixed but not pure. For example, in the 2 fields of the Star Wars League and the entertainment industry, giants like the Shenghao Group and Starbao Group would definitely be involved. If this kind of involvement could be compared, it was like a person who would only spend a little money for entertainment after eating and drinking. However, you couldn't spend a lot of money to seek pleasure when you couldn't even afford to eat. This was against the way of survival. The Starbao Group was now facing such an awkward situation, especially when the proportion of its tertiary industry was increasing year by year. There were already signs of an overall imbalance, and the group's internal competition had become the norm. The higher-ups were not united, and they did not pay attention to talents. The gap between them and the Shenghao Group was widening day by day. This was completely different from the Starbao Group in the past. On the other hand, the Shenghao Group had been firmly focused on the core fields of space technology, military research and development, and energy exploration. Its hard strength was quite strong. Although the Shenghao Group also had various internal problems and had always been unscrupulous in doing things, this was very helpful to the overall development. At least, they focused all their strength on one thing and would not put their main energy in those fancy fields. In fact, Star Rainbow's biggest advantage over Shenghao had always been Star Splendor University. Every year, Star Splendor was the most important factor in Star Rainbow's talent transfer. After these young talents who stood out in the certification exam entered Star Rainbow, they were like eagles released to the sky, freely soaring in the world of innovation. However, as Starlight's fame increased year by year, more and more aristocratic children entered the school, and the number of talents gradually decreased. This did not mean that the atmosphere was bad, but that the path for those from humble backgrounds to enter was getting narrower and narrower. Cartel was a classic example. In fact, in Starlight, many people felt sorry for him. They did not feel sorry for Cartel's situation, but they felt that someone like Cartel should not end up in such a lonely and painful state. This was not the original intention of Starlight to nurture talents. On the contrary, the young students nowadays relied on their family conditions and cultivation resources to compete, show off, indulge in pleasure, indulge in debauchery, and indulge in a life of luxury. The poor students were also affected. Everyone hoped to join the Battlecraft League or enter the entertainment industry. After all, it was the fastest way to earn money. In the end, in this impetuous era, there were too few young students who were willing to focus on research and development or put in the hard work to cultivate their basic skills. In the past few years, Xinghong had also gradually realized the severity of this problem. If they wanted to regroup, the Night Luminescent Pearl No. 5 plan was a very good starting point. Ling Xingxian came to the Blue Moon Branch Division to summon the forgotten seniors like Cartel back and gather them together to fight against Shanghao. Now that Cartel's question made him blush. The transit string mustered up his courage and said, "Mr. Cartel, our Starlight Corporation cannot do without the support of seniors like you. The ideals of pioneers like you are the true wealth. It is the foundation of the entire corporation. If Ding Meng was a straight man, then Cartel was an old straight man." He rudely interrupted the other party and said, "Support? Hee. When you dealt with me back then, did you think that we were wealth? That we were the foundation of your foundation? You treated us like criminals. You wanted us to hand over the project and violently chased us away. When Ro Manru left Saint Splinter's headquarters, she didn't even have 5,000 star coins on her. Poor her. She worked hard for Starlight for so many years. Is this how you treat her?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Cartel." The transit string lowered her head with a sad expression. Cartel suddenly became agitated. He waved his hands and said, "My assistant, Xiao Yin, was such a good lad. How did Kongmin treat him?" He said that he was the main person responsible for the theft of the curved mirror technology and handed him over to the public security department. In the end, he was convicted, sentenced, and locked in Red Jade prison. When I went to see him 17 years ago, he was tortured to death. Do you think he was willing to go to prison? He voluntarily confessed to his crime to protect me. Look at what you have done. You wanted to go back? Dream on." Even Ding Meng and Li Yu did not know about this. At this moment, the few people in the hall were shocked. The transit string looked at the ground and shook her head. She seemed to be sighing. If she was born 20 years earlier, this tragedy would never have happened. She raised her head again and said, "Mr. Cartel, I hope you can consider this problem from the big picture. It would have been better if she did not mention this." Once she did, Cartel became angry again. "That's what you told me back then. What pressure from the Federation? What influence from the media? What big picture? What do you want me to do? I've already retreated here, and you still don't want to let me go?" The old man in the suit sighed helplessly. "Old fool, Miss Ling was still young back then. She didn't know anything, but at least we were classmates. We didn't make things difficult for you, right? Think about your other classmates. They treated you very well back then. They often helped you and helped you. Think about our tutors. They even slept in the middle of the night to train you. When they heard that you were at a bottleneck, they rushed back to the school to help you draw. I'm sure you remember all these, right? You've been here for so many years. Even if you don't want to admit it, you can't deny that you have feelings for Starbao. Now that the opportunity is here, why don't you seize it? I'm still waiting for you to make me a weapon." His words were quite sincere, but unfortunately, the Iron Man couldn't hold it in anymore. Can I understand it this way? When you want people, you think they're important. Their talents, wealth, and the foundation of a foothold. Once you don't want them anymore, they'll become criminals, unemployed, and good-for-nothings. Why didn't you say these things when Mr. Cartel was demoted by the higher-ups of Starbao? Or rather, did anyone stand up for him? I'm sure you didn't, right? The old man in the suit's face darkened, but Ding Meng couldn't be bothered with him. He continued, "Mr. Cartel sacrificed so much for Starbao Corporation, and in the end, he got such an ending. Or rather, Did Mr. Cartel do anything wrong? He should have been thrown here for 50 to 60 years. The old man in the suit frowned. Forgive me for not recognizing you, but I haven't asked who this little brother is. Su Mengqing walked over. Miss Ling, he's Ding Meng from Bogger Planet. He's a level 3 VIP that I've invited. Oh. The transit string's reaction was very calm. She also didn't care about the existence of a small fry, but she still put down her pride and took the initiative to greet him. Hello, Ding Meng. Although she was trying to be friendly, the old man in the suit couldn't tolerate Ding Meng's impudence. His body seemed to tremble slightly, and a powerful aura quickly left his body. The people around him didn't sense this aura at all because the old man had controlled it very precisely. It was only targeted at Ding Meng alone. Ding Meng could feel that this aura was clearly a combination of Cheng Rifeng and Mao Zhan's origin steel shield. It was a combination of hardness and gentleness, and it had a powerful aura. The problem was that this was just an aura. It wasn't a real martial skill or origin energy release. If even the aura was at this level, it was hard to imagine how ridiculous the old man's strength was. Ding Meng didn't dare to activate his origin. If he used origin energy to resist, it would probably affect Cartel, who was next to him. As such, when the steel-like aura pressed down on him, Ding Meng quickly reached out with his right hand to stop it. Even so, most of the aura still slammed into his body. He was too lazy to care about it, so he might as well take it head-on. In the transit string's vision, Ding Meng bent over slightly. It was obvious that his abdomen had been attacked. However, as he activated the diamond star-fusing art, his palm absorbed all of the other party's aura into his body. The transit string turned to look at the old man and said in a somewhat reproachful tone, "Old tongue." The old man understood and immediately stopped exerting pressure. At this moment, Ding Meng stood up straight and spat out a white mist from his mouth. The old man was surprised. This kid has some skill. He had just used his will to exert some pressure. He hadn't even attacked, but anyone below the war's supremacy level definitely wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of pressure. They would be forced back on the spot. However, not only did Ding Meng not retreat, he actually easily neutralized it. At the very least, he thought that it was very easy. In reality, Ding Meng felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if someone had slammed him with a steel plate. His entire body stiffened, and he had no choice but to circulate his origin energy to relieve himself. Little rascal sighed. This old man is probably a champion, right? Xiao AI said. He shouldn't be any weaker than a junior champion. He's at least an intermediate champion. The transit string also looked surprised. Only then did he pay more attention to Ding Meng. Mr. Ding Meng, I'm very sorry. After all, you're a guest of Star Rainbow. Ding Meng was also very angry. So you know this too. Then why did he still attack me? Attack you? The old man laughed disdainfully. If I really attacked you, you would be dead by now. However, young man, you're pretty good. You actually managed to block it. Ding Meng didn't answer because he knew the other party wasn't spouting nonsense. The old man was just thinking about it. If he really attacked him, he wouldn't be able to resist at all, let alone attack him. Even if the old man just blew at him, he would probably be sent flying. It couldn't be helped. Warrior-level powerhouses were that strong. Even if he wasn't convinced, he had to accept it. Chapter 297. Cartel was a non-combat origin ability user, but that didn't mean that he couldn't tell. When he saw that Ding Meng had been tricked, he was annoyed. Tomar, you old bastard, what are you doing? If you want to hit me, then do it openly. What's wrong with bullying a young man? Where's your face? The old man in the suit wasn't angry. He waved his hand heroically and said, Don't worry, I'm not that despicable. I don't have the habit of bullying children. With this wave of his hand, another wave of aura was released, but this time it wasn't pressure. Instead, it was a very gentle energy that wrapped around Ding Meng's body. It made Ding Meng feel very comfortable. The stiff and fierce pressure from before disappeared without a trace. Instead, a warm current flowed into his body, cooling his limbs and bones and clearing his mind. To be honest, this kind of cultivation could no longer be described as unfathomable. For the current Ding Meng, This was an invincible existence. At this time, the transit string erased the screen and turned off the wristwatch. She had already learned about Ding Ming's personal information from the system. Name, Ding Ming. Gender, male. Age, 21 years old. Identity, Holy Grail Federation, Azure System, Blue Moon Planet, Blue Pole Star City. 4th class citizen. Origin, Planet KV-303. Node, a top student of Starlight University, a 3rd class guest of Starlight International Group. No bad records. His personal information was very simple. It was precisely because of this simplicity that the transit string was truly shocked. This person in front of her had been promoted from a refugee to a citizen, but to become a top student of Starlight University, this was something that she couldn't underestimate. Most importantly, this Ding Ming was only 21 years old this year. Just now, he had been able to resist Teng Ma's pressure. Could this be a 21-year-old war supremacy? The transit string suddenly put on a warm smile. Ding Ming, you're going to participate in Starlight University's certification exam this year, right? Ding Ming was secretly furious and didn't want to pay attention to her. Who cares if she's the daughter of a CEO or a rising star? What does that have to do with me? Seeing this, Liu hurried to smooth things over. Miss Ling, Ding Ming is indeed going to take the exam. The old man smiled and said, what a coincidence. Hai is also participating in Starlight certification this year. This time, Ding Ming had no choice but to say Jiang Hai. The old man said proudly, since you're studying in Starlight, you should know my nephew. Ding Ming's voice turned cold. Your nephew? The old man said, that's for sure. He'll definitely be the champion of Starlight this year. Teng Ma, don't be so certain. Cartel spoke. The exam hasn't even started yet, and you already know who the first place is? The old man couldn't help but laugh. If he's not the first, I can't think of anyone else in Starlight University who can be the first. Little brother Ding is not bad, but there's still a gap between him and Hai Yi. Hee hee. Cartel couldn't help but laugh. He had some understanding of Ding Ming. Not to mention other things, he had applied psychokinesis and could directly absorb the energy of the inverse source crystal. This was the first time he had met someone like that. No matter how powerful your nephew is, how can he be more powerful than such a freak? However, Cartel's he annoyed the old man. What do you mean? Nothing. Cartel spread his hands and said, you said that your nephew is the first, so he's the first. Is there a problem? The old man knew that he was being sarcastic, so he couldn't flare up. He could only continue to brag. Hai has already been internally signed by Saint Splendor's headquarters. Once he passes the certification, he'll directly enter the headquarters to work. He's a little young, but after 5 or 6 years of training, he'll be able to take charge of a small team. Oomph. Cartel couldn't be bothered to reply. Unspoken boasting was the most deadly. Just because he didn't reply, it didn't mean that others wouldn't ask. The transit string faced Ding Ming. Ding Ming, after you pass the certification, do you have any plans? It was obvious that she wanted to rope in talents. Furthermore, she didn't doubt that Ding Ming would be able to pass the exam. Ding Ming glanced at her and said calmly, I'll definitely join the Star Rainbow group. This answer was completely unexpected. The transit string was both surprised and happy. That's great. As long as you join the Star Rainbow group, I can guarantee that you'll definitely work at Saint Splendor's headquarters. I can also guarantee that you'll have all the cultivation resources and the smoothest promotion path. Wait. Ding Ming interrupted her without any hesitation. Don't think that I'm joining the Star Rainbow group just to go to Saint Splendor's headquarters. The transit string was stunned again. Then why are you joining? Ding Ming turned to look at Cartel and said word by word. I want to join Star Rainbow Group's Blue Moon Group's Energy R&D Department 9. I want to be Mr. Cartel's assistant. Cough, cough. The elder almost choked. He suspected that he had heard wrongly. In his eyes, Ding Ming was inferior to Jiang Hai. However, no matter how inferior he was still a young war supremacy. Why would he give up his future and stay in a place like this? The transit string was also very confused. However, she still said patiently, Mr. Ding Ming, you're very humorous. Ding Ming sneered and said, do you think I'm joking? The transit string asked, aren't you? Ding Ming said seriously, I'm not joking with you. I always keep my word. Once I pass the certification, I will definitely report here. I said that I want to be Mr. Cartel's assistant, so I will definitely do it. The transit string sighed helplessly. Ding Ming, don't you think that choosing a better platform will be more helpful for your development and future? Ding Ming also sighed. Miss Ling, you think that this place has no future. This elder probably thinks so too. Miss Su, what about you? What do you think? Su Mengqing was silent. Then she said, Ding Ming, you and Jinghao are very similar when they were young. Both of you are too stubborn. Jinghao took the wrong path in the past, but you are still young and have a bright future. I don't want you to be like him and make the wrong choice. I'm sincerely thinking for you. I believe you. Ding Ming nodded and said, Actually, I also know that this place has no future, but I still want to choose here. This time, everyone was stunned. They did not understand what he meant. Ding Ming stared at the transit string and said word by word, I just want to let you know that any random person who comes from a place that you think has no future is much better than those who you think have a future. Now, everyone understood his intention. He did not mean anything else. He just wanted to avenge Mr. Cartel. It did not matter if you mocked him, belittled him, or ridiculed him. He, Ding Ming, would clear his name. The old man laughed disdainfully. It's good for young people to be impulsive, but I'm afraid that it will go to their heads. Ding Ming also laughed. People who are born with a silver spoon are also lucky, but I'm afraid that such people will not even be as good as refugees. According to the Federation's usual practice, I think that such people are very suitable to be laborers. Origin ability users must be very efficient in mining. The old man's face turned ugly. Obviously, he was angered. Kid, do you really think that you are stronger than Hai? Ding Ming laughed. I also admit that he is very strong, but you can also ask him how confident he is in defeating me. Ling Xingxian and the elder were startled at the same time. This was reasonable. This Ding Ming wasn't some weakling or newbie. If Ding Ming were to fail in the examination, then everyone's face would be lost. They could already imagine how Cartel would ridicule them. Look, aren't you the number one? Didn't you claim to be a genius of Starlight? You can't even win against me, an assistant? Who is the real trash? However, Cartel did not say anything. He just silently looked at Ding Ming, a trace of gratitude in his eyes. He had been here for 57 years, and in these 57 years, no one had dared to stand up for him. Moreover, they were almost willing to bet their future and wealth to speak up for him. However, Ding Ming had really done so. He had just happened to find the money to buy a weapon for Jiang Hai, and Jiang Hai had used this method to repay him. Wasn't this Ding Ming in front of him the same as himself when he was young? If someone did him a little favor, he would always repay it with all his might. Yes, I've been here for 57 years. I can have no temper, no personality, and no friends, but I can't have no guts. With a surge of pride, Cartel silently walked forward and placed his hand on Ding Ming's shoulder. Then he said to the transit string, Second Miss Ling, I can promise you that if Tang Ma Er's nephew can defeat Ding Ming in the certification exam, I will immediately follow you back to Saint Splendor's headquarters. Ding Ming turned his head in surprise. The old man didn't look like he was joking. He looked very determined. At this moment, Ding Ming felt a little touched. The old man had also thrown away his pride and placed all his trust in him. Little rascal couldn't help but speak up. This old man, you don't say. He has the same personality as Ding Ming. Arrogant. Xiao AI said, According to my calculations, the tool and value logic are complementing each other this time. Ding Ming's chances of winning are actually the same as Jiang Hai's. The transit string finally smiled. Mr. Cartel, it's a promise? Wait. Cartel decisively waved his hand again. If you want to go back, this is far from enough. The transit string respectfully lowered her head. Mr. Cartel, what other requests do you have? Cartel said, Kong Min, that rotten person, must be dealt with. If he becomes the vice president, Star Rainbow Corporation can forget about it in the future. The transit string was a little troubled. To be honest, she also looked down on Kong Min. However, Star Rainbow Corporation was such a big corporation. It wasn't a small matter to remove a vice president for no reason. Furthermore, it wasn't something she could decide. It had to be decided by her father. The old man couldn't help but laugh. Love fool, you really know how to pick the right time to act. Compared to Kong Min, who do you think is more important? Cartel waved his hand impatiently. It's up to you whether you want to deal with it or not. Anyway, this is my bottom line. If you can't do it, I don't care. At most, I'll go to Shanghai Corporation. I believe that the higher-ups, they're definitely not as stupid as you. After he said that, the transit string and the old man's expressions changed. If someone like Cartel went to Shanghai Corporation, it was hard to say whether Star Rainbow Corporation would be in trouble in the future. However, the transit string and the horse would definitely be attacked. She would have to face Ling Zhixing's anger. No, it should be Gale. Chapter 298. It was late at night, and the crystal glass on the wall had been removed. Cartel stood quietly in front of the window, silently watching the lights outside. No one knew what he was thinking. The three people in the transit string had left, but Ding Ming and Li Yu stayed behind. After an unknown amount of time, Cartel suddenly turned around and said, "I'm hungry." Li Yu immediately stepped forward with a smile and said, "Mr. Cartel, what do you want to eat? I'll go to the restaurant and buy it for you." Cartel said, "No, I don't want to eat from the restaurant." Ding Ming hesitated and said, "You want to eat outside?" Cartel nodded. Li Yu said, "What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it." Cartel shook his head again and patted Ding Ming's shoulder meaningfully. "No, let's go out and eat together. I'll treat you." Li Yu was stunned. Mr. Cartel had only gone out 3 times in the past 57 years. He ate, drank, and defecated in this research institute. Now he wanted to go out. However, Ding Ming immediately understood that Mr. Cartel was thanking him in this unique way because he had only gone out 3 times in the past few years. He could imagine that if it wasn't something special, he would never go out. But now he had to go out. Perhaps for him, today was an important day worth remembering. There were places to eat late at night in Blue Pole Star City, but Cartel didn't choose to eat in the bustling South City district. Instead, he chose to eat in the underground city. This was a block on the 500th floor of the underground city. It was certainly not as prosperous as the surface city. There were rows of small 3-story houses. Many of the houses were made of wood, and they looked as if they would collapse at any time. The streets were very narrow, and even the street lamps were not crystal lights. They were dim electric lights that swayed in the wind, making the underground city look even more dilapidated and backward. However, this place was equally lively because it was a night market. The streets were filled with hawkers hawking their wares. The lower-class citizens who had worked for a day would often eat a bowl of hot noodles at the hawkers before returning home happily to take care of their wives and children. To be honest, this place was far worse than the buried city of Cypress Tree, but Ding Ming liked it here. The streets were filled with all kinds of smells. The aroma of stir-fried cabbage, the sweat of coolies, and the smell of stir-fried chili and garlic. These smells mixed together to form a very unique smell. Ding Ming could not help but take a deep breath. Kurt patted him on the shoulder again and said with a smile, "The first day I saw you, I knew you'd be suited for this place." Before Ding Ming could answer, Li Yu asked why. Kurt sighed and said, "We've all been through hard times. How could I not see it? Let's go. I'll take you to a good place." At the end of the street was a brownwood house. A simple noodle stall was set up on the first floor. There was a sign next to it that read, "Old Zheng's Eel Noodles." Although the stall was not big, it was clean and tidy. It was a rare goods stall in the buried city. The noodle stall was sold by a young and stocky man. He held a pair of long and thick bamboo chopsticks in his hands and deftly picked the noodles from a steaming pot. Ding Ming had good taste. He could not help but say, "This pair of chopsticks is at least 60 years old." Li Yu was surprised and asked, "Really? Really?" Cartel sat down at a small wooden table and murmured with a sigh, "When I first came to Blue Pole Star City, he wasn't even born yet. This stall was run by his grandfather. He picked the noodles at least twice as fast as him." Li Yu was curious and asked, "What happened after that?" Cartel said, "After his grandfather passed away, the stall was taken over by his father. After his father passed away 8 years ago, it was his turn to run the stall. Ding Meng was also curious. The young man looked to be around 30 years old. Presumably, his family had not been Origin ability users for 3 generations. Even if his lifespan was not long, his father should not have passed away so early. Cartel seemed to know what the two of them were thinking. He explained, Ding Meng, you should know Sun Shirling, right? She's a top student at Starlight University. Ding Meng did not just know her. He had a deep impression of her. Isn't she that Jiang Hai's girlfriend? She wasn't like that before. Cartel expressionlessly explained. She was born in the same year as this young man. They used to live here. They were neighbors, and the relationship between their families was quite good. If it wasn't for Sun Shirling awakening her origin ability early, she would probably be the lady boss of this stall by now. Ding Meng was stunned. Is she? Cartel immediately interrupted him. Yes, Ding Meng said. You know what I want to ask? I know. Cartel answered firmly. Liu could also tell that Sun Shirling was most likely taken away by Ding Meng. The young man's experience might be the same as Cartel's, but she and Ding Meng did not ask further. After all, it was Mr. Cartel's sore spot. It was best not to mention it if possible. Unexpectedly, Cartel waved his hand and said, Eat first. I'll tell you the reason after you eat. Why did I bring you here? The noodle soup was quickly served. It was a bowl of noodles mixed with eel slices and fresh shrimp, sprinkled with a secret recipe of chili oil and a layer of green onions. It emitted a rich fragrance. Such a bowl of noodles was enough to arouse anyone's appetite. Ding Meng could not help but laugh. I can eat 50 bowls of these noodles. Liu smiled and handed him a pair of chopsticks. Ding Meng, you have to eat more. It's rare for Mr. Cartel to treat us. The moment the eel-fried shrimp noodles entered his mouth, the delicious taste was indescribable. Ding Meng finished the bowl of noodles in no time. He even drank the soup. The young man happily served him 3 bowls of noodles. Little brother, take your time. There's no rush. Liu was also full of praise. I didn't expect the underground city's night market to have such delicious food. All right, how much is a bowl of noodles? Cartel picked at the noodles slowly. 8 star coins a bowl. No way. Liu was shocked. Only 8 star coins. If it was in the Jindy Food Plaza, it would be at least 100 star coins a bowl. Cartel said, it was cheaper in the past. It was only 3 star coins a bowl. Ding Meng was also curious. How can it be so cheap? This kind of cheap was definitely relative. No matter how cheap it was, it could not be compared to the nutrient solution. However, to the people who lived here, this was really a delicacy. Cartel slowly put down his chopsticks and let out a long sigh. His voice was filled with nostalgia. When I first came to Starlight University, the dormitory wasn't free, so I rented a room here. At that time, I was injected with nutrient solutions every day. My biggest wish at that time was to save money and come here to eat a bowl of noodles. I would only feel satisfied if I could eat noodles from this place. Ding Meng might not be able to understand this feeling, but Liu could. For a poor student who studied in a foreign land, they worked hard and worked hard. Sometimes the only thing that supported them was a small bowl of noodles. It was because this was the only consolation in those poor years. Many years later, no matter if you were still poor or successful, you would never be able to taste the feeling of the past, nor would you be able to find the taste in your memory. Some things could only be stored in your memory forever. Cartel continued. Later on, I found out that this kind of noodles could be sold for 7 star coins a bowl. However, the boss insisted on selling it for 3 star coins because he knew that everyone was living a hard life. Everyone wanted to save money to live on the surface. Therefore, he would rather make less money and help everyone save money. Liu looked at the young man who was busy at the stove. Is it his grandfather? Cartel nodded. After I came here more often and got familiar with the boss, his grandfather would always give me a big bowl of noodles every time he cooked for me. There were also a lot of shrimps and eels in it. He was afraid that I would be malnourished. Liu's eyes flashed. He is a good boss. Cartel said, I heard that the boss was very poor when he first immigrated here. It was the neighbors who helped him put together this stall. Liu said, I understand. He is repaying the people in this area. Cartel's gaze also landed on the stove. It was only when Sun Shirling awakened her origin ability and was accepted by Starlight University that the young man began to take over his father's cooking. Their family had also saved enough money and was preparing to move to the surface. They also rented a small shop in the southern part of the city and planned to operate on the surface. Liu said, but they didn't move up. They're still here. Cartel said, at that time, the young man and Sun Shirling's marriage was also on the agenda. However, you should know that the Sun family already looked down on this family at that time. There was no need to even think about this. They were both from a poor family. At this time, a golden phoenix flew out of their family and got together with a genius student from Starlight University. How could they still look down on a noodle seller? Cartel said expressionlessly. The young man was definitely not satisfied. He and his father went to ask for an explanation. The two families quarreled, and the Sun family kicked him out without hesitation. Jiang Hai was also present at that time. He didn't finish speaking, but Liu could already imagine that the young man and his father must have been severely humiliated. That's still considered light. Cartel's expression became ugly. They spent all their savings on the small shop they rented. However, it just so happened that they were cheated by someone at that time. There were problems with the shop's procedures, and their money went down the drain. As far as I know, not only the shop, but the entire center also belongs to the Jiang family. Now, Liu understood. The Jiang family must have secretly dealt with this family. Ding Ming's expression also became cold. Jiang Hai did it? He didn't need to do anything for such a despicable thing. Cartel coldly replied. There is no evidence that it was done by the Jiang family. However, half of their family's savings were gone just like that. After they came back, their father was so angry that he fell ill. As they didn't have the money to treat him in time, he passed away 10 days later. Ding Ming suddenly put down his chopsticks. The originally delicious eel noodles had become bitter and astringent in his mouth. He couldn't eat anymore. So he came back down here to continue running the noodle shop? Ding Ming's expression also became expressionless. Cartel sighed and said, 9 out of 10 things in life don't go your way. No one could do anything about it. Liu also sighed. I think that it's normal for Sun Shirling to like Jiang Hai. After all, the young man is too different from her. It's normal. Ding Ming's eyes flashed with coldness. However, should the father and son be bullied by others? Should they be dumped? Should they be cheated? Should no one stand up for them? Liu couldn't understand the thoughts of an iron-willed man. Hence, Cartel continued. To put it bluntly, I grew up eating his noodles, and so did Sun Shirling's family. This is why I had to make an agreement with the higher-ups previously. Ding Ming finally understood. The young man's experience was too similar to the old man's. The old man didn't have the ability to fight. Furthermore, he had been oppressed for so many years. If he wanted Ding Ming to take revenge for this family, it was also equivalent to taking revenge for himself. Ding Ming took the initiative to say, Mr. Cartel, did you already make an agreement with Miss Ling? If I lose to Jiang Hai, you will continue to stay here. Chapter 299. Cartel sighed. It doesn't matter whether we agreed or not, because I'll be leaving the Blue Moon branch very soon. Li was shocked. Why? Mr. Cartel, do you think Ding Ming will lose to Jiang Hai? Cartel smiled. This isn't the most important thing. Since second Miss Ling has appeared in the Blue Moon branch, it means that the higher-ups in the headquarters have realized the severity of the problem and are determined to rectify it. I also know that I have to go back. However, if it were any other Tom, Dick, or Harry, this trip would still be the same. Hence, regardless of whether Ding Ming wins or loses, I have to leave. Liu sighed. Looking at his expression, it was hard to tell if he was reluctant to leave or if he was happy for his old man. Ding Ming said in a low voice, What do you need me to do? Cartel looked at him meaningfully and said, Kid, don't embarrass me. I have embarrassed myself enough in my life. This time, I'm counting on you to make me proud. Ding Ming nodded. Don't worry, I will do it as soon as possible. The as soon as possible he was referring to was the cultivation of the inverse source crystal. Tom was very tight now. Originally, he planned to complete the 8th origin within half a year, but the current situation did not allow him to slow down. He had to complete it quickly. Let's go. Cartel took the initiative to stand up. He hadn't been here for many years, but when he saw that the young man was still busy and happy, he felt a little relieved. A person's strength was secondary. A good attitude was the most important. How much? Ding Meng walked to the stall. There was a wristwatch on the table. The trading system was lit up outside so that customers could pay after eating. Ding Meng noticed that the kid's name was Zheng Ming on the trading list. At this moment, many memories began to appear in his mind. He thought of his elder brother. Little brother, you ate a total of 6 bowls of noodles. The price is 48 star coins. Zheng Ming laughed and explained. Did you just move down here? This is the first time I've seen you. Give me 45 star coins. It's good to save 3. All right. Without saying a word, the straight male student turned on his wristband and showed the trading system. After entering the password, Zheng Ming's wristband kept ringing. Then, Zheng Ming was scared. Hey, little brother Ding, what are you doing? You gave too much. Come on, I'll return it to you. Ding Ming did not pay 45 star credits. Instead, he paid him 45,000 star credits. Ding Ming ignored him and stared straight at him. How much did you spend to rent the shop in Nanqing District? Zheng Ming was stunned. However, when he saw Ding Ming's sharp gaze, he was really frightened. He said in a trembling voice, 500,000 star coins. Hearing this number, Ding Ming sighed in his heart. 500,000 star coins. He did not know how many bowls of noodles the 3 generations of his family had to sell and how many years they had to work from dawn to dusk in order to gather such a sum of money. To Jiang Hai, Mu Hua, and Yongbang, this sum of money wasn't even enough for a casual bet. However, to the Zheng family, it was an unimaginably huge sum of money. Just because the Sun family turned against them, they were cheated and even angered Zheng Ming's father to death. Very good. Don't worry. In the future, someone will pay you back 10 times. You will also have a new shop. After saying this, Ding Ming turned and left. Hey, wait. Little brother Ding, I'll return you the money. Zheng Ming chased after him. However, how could he catch up with him? He was pulled back by Cartel. Obviously, he did not know Cartel. Old man, what are you doing? Cartel sighed. Don't chase after him. Take the money. Why? Zheng Ming was puzzled. He's sick here. Cartel pointed at his bald head. Zheng Ming was puzzled. Is he mentally unsound? No. He likes to meddle in other people's business. After saying this, Cartel turned and left. Zheng Ming stood there dumbfounded. He could not understand these 2 people. They were really strange. 6 bowls of noodles actually cost tens of thousands of star coins. Liu went forward with a smile and bowed slightly. Boss Zheng, the noodles at your house are really delicious. Zheng Ming reacted and quickly smiled. It's all because of everyone's support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Liu smiled and said, Boss Zheng, your family has been good bosses for 3 generations. Good people will be rewarded. Please believe me. The 2 of them also came because of your reputation. After saying this, she turned and left. Zheng Ming stayed where he was, savoring these words. After a long time, when he looked up, Ding Ming and the other 2 had already walked far away. However, looking at the backs of Ding Ming and the other 2, Zheng Ming's eyes turned red. He muttered to himself, Dad, what you said before was right. Good people will be rewarded in the end. It was already the second half of the night when they returned to the Starlight Group. Liu went straight to the general department to rest. Cartel began to tinker with his strange gadgets on the workbench again. Ding Ming did not waste any time and quickly entered the induction cabin. After knowing the cultivation principle of the 8th point, Little Rascal and Xiao AI naturally stopped guiding him. The 2 of them stayed in Ding Ming's primary consciousness space. Little Rascal began to organize the results of Ding Ming's training in Starlight. This time, it was Xiao AI's turn to be a little bored. Support system. I have a feeling that you're not a real support system. Little Rascal snorted at this argument. Didn't you always say that you don't believe in feelings? Why do you feel it now? Xiao AI's tone was still serious. Haven't you noticed that ever since the fourth level of access was unlocked, our computing, analysis, learning, copying, and transmission abilities have increased exponentially? Little Rascal was confused. That's normal, okay? After the access level is unlocked, our abilities will naturally increase exponentially. This is the same principle as Ding Ming's creation of the origin. It's different. Xiao AI corrected her. Recently, I've been resetting Professor Harsing's program settings. I realized that in the professor's initial settings, the corresponding ability of each level of access wouldn't be able to reach such a ridiculous number. Little Rascal couldn't help but say, that's because Ding Ming's power has increased tremendously. Xiao AI continued, do you know? In higher-level space civilizations, even those godlike civilizations, there's an endless source of energy. So far, no civilization has been able to provide a reasonable explanation for it. Furthermore, this source of energy is not the energy found in dark matter. Little Rascal was surprised. What kind of energy source is that? Xiao AI said, it's a kind of life force that encompasses and rules over everything else. No celestial phenomenon in the universe has been able to define it. At the current level of human civilization, they call it love. Surprisingly, Little Rascal didn't object. This time, it was silent for a long time before saying, I know this as well. In higher dimensions, the decisive factor isn't technology or origin energy, but the power of love. Xiao AI continued. In the human world, there are many theories about this. One of them is that humans are becoming more and more like machines, while machines are becoming more and more like humans. This is because the leap in technology has caused humanity to be unable to keep up. Instead, the machines have been forced to learn human nature. Love is a kind of power in human nature. It's a very abstract concept. This includes the fate that Cartel mentioned earlier and Ding Ming's example of paying for noodles. These are all examples of human nature, a kind of high-end power. However, humans haven't fully grasped it, instead relying on technology. Little Rascal finally understood what kind of earth-shattering topic she was talking about. Xiao AI, could it be that the change you're talking about is the awakening of artificial intelligence? Xiao AI said, that's right. Don't you think that our current abilities already possess some of the characteristics of the awakening of artificial intelligence? Little Rascal was puzzled. I don't think so, Xiao AI said, but at the very least, we already have this idea and are discussing this topic. These are the characteristics. Poor Little Rascal was confused by her. Can you stop thinking about these worthless thoughts? Xiao AI was displeased. How can you say that it's worthless? This is related to the crucial construction of ACT 5570's eighth origin. Little Rascal was shocked. What do you mean? Xiao AI explained. This eighth origin is a high-precision reconstruction of ACT 5570's memories after extracting them. Then, it simulates an illusion and allows him to make a choice. Every choice he makes will result in a different outcome. In his previous cultivation, he has always made choices based on his inner feelings. I always thought that he was wrong, but I was wrong because this origin has already been defined by him, which is the love, hate, sorrow, and joy of human nature. This is the true, decisive, high-level power. Little Rascal's round face nodded. Not bad. Your analysis makes a lot of sense. Xiao AI said. Then here comes the question. What's the standard for a complete construction? Little Rascal felt a headache coming on. Is it to completely grasp this power and understand what love is? Isn't that a little too melodramatic? Xiao AI said. It's definitely not as low level as you think. I'm guessing that the correct cultivation method should be within those extremely realistic illusions. There's no need to choose again. Little Rascal was stunned. There's no need to choose again? Xiao AI said, that's right. Changing one's choice time and time again will only make it harder and harder to cultivate, and you'll also have to take a detour. Perhaps you'll never be able to construct it. Only what has happened in his memories is his original choice. Since it's his original choice, then it follows the starting point of his choice, Based on his inner feelings and values, it also matches his initial definition of this origin. When all the memory fragments are connected as one, then the eighth origin will be truly completed. Little Rascal sighed. Your analysis is so good that even I can't refute it. Perhaps that's really the case. Shout AI said. Let's go in and take a look. Let's see what exactly is stored in ACT 5570's mind. Chapter 300. The wind and snow were still blowing, but the soil by the river was already green. This was a sign that winter was about to pass. Yu Xingyang stopped beside a huge rock on the grassland. His gaze fell on the stream and the river. The gurgling sound of spring water was particularly moving. If you had listened carefully, you would find that the breath of spring could easily infect a person's mood. At the end of the stream was a towering mountain. The mountain was imposing, and the top of the mountain towered into the clouds. The entire mountain was shrouded in clouds all year round. Dingmeng walked up. Is that where we are going? Yu Xingyang nodded. Before I take you out of the Desheng kingdom, that is the last stop I have to go to. Dingmeng said, Oh. Yu Xingyang said, I still have an unfinished appointment. Dingmeng did not ask what the appointment was, because along the way, Yu Xingyang had not said much except to teach him the saber technique. Yu Xingyang was not a talkative person, and Dingmeng was even less of a talkative person. Unexpectedly, Yu Xingyang made an exception this time. He looked at the stream in a daze and said with a sigh, The last time I came here was 20 years ago. Yu Xingyang really became famous 7 years ago at the martial arts symposium in the capital. Although the limelight was taken away by his elder brother, who did not know his name in the Desheng Kingdom and the extraterritorial Devil Kingdom. It was just that 20 years ago, Yu Xingyang was still in his youth. At that time, he actually came to the Desheng Kingdom. This time, even Dingmeng was curious. You came here specially? Yu Xingyang nodded. In fact, many people do not know that although I am from the Devil Kingdom, I have been traveling around the 5 great countries since I was young. I came here 20 years ago to see him. Today, I also came here specially to take him away. Dingmeng did not ask any more questions. He had waited for 20 years. This person must be very important to Yu Xingyang. Yu Xingyang smiled. You must be curious about what kind of person he is. Dingmeng was indeed curious. Your friend. Yu Xingyang smiled and shook his head. 40 years ago, I was about the same age as you. Just like now, we played together by the river and caught fish together. At that time, I hadn't awakened my origin ability, and neither had he. Only now did I realize that in a person's life, only death is the happiest. Only a person like him would have such a strange way of thinking, because the dead were truly carefree, while the living would always have such worries. However, Dingmeng could understand what he was thinking. For a master like Yu Xingyang, he must have lived a very lonely life. There were not many things that could arouse his interest. It seemed that the person who lived in the depths of this mountain must also be a master. Yu Xingyang raised his head to look at the mountain, his eyes full of expectation. He let out a long sigh. If I can take him away this time, I won't set foot in the 5 great countries in the future. I only want to pass on my skills to you and then retire to the fields and gardens. I won't involve myself in the affairs of Jianghu anymore. If you have the opportunity to see Big Brother or that misty Wenhe, please pass on a message to them. I, Yu Xingyang, have also done my part for this hero's knife. Dingmeng quickly lowered his head and thanked him. Mr. Yu, please rest assured. I will definitely pass on your message. The two of them stood by the river for a long time. At this time, the clouds parted, revealing the azure sky. The two of them walked up the mountain under the warm sunlight. This mountain had been built with hiking trails. The simple stone stairs were long and flat, and the surface of a stone was smooth and shiny. It was obvious that it had been carefully polished. This was not a simple place as one would imagine. Sure enough, halfway up the mountain, there was a very exquisitely repaired waterside pavilion. There was a long plaque cast on the pavilion, and 3 beautiful golden words were engraved on it. Celestial Heaven's Gate. This was obviously a sect. Moreover, looking at the clothes of the 2 women in the pavilion, the way they talked and acted, the strength of this sect should be extraordinary. The sects of the Shang Kingdom were rarely located in the mountains. Most of them were located in the capital city and had a good relationship with the royal family. And this kind of sects that were hidden in the lofty mountains and precipitous ridges had always not been involved in worldly affairs. They were wholeheartedly focused on recuperating and cultivating. When they saw Yu Xingyang appear on the trail, the two women immediately stepped forward and bowed. "Honorable guest, please stay. Our celestial heaven's gate has always rejected male guests. Please go down the mountain by yourself. If you have offended us in any way, please forgive us." Yu Xingyang also bowed and returned the greeting. "Ladies, my name is Yu Xingyang. I come from the Devil Nation. Many years ago, I have already made an agreement with the sect master to meet at your sect today. Please pass on a message." These two people definitely knew of Yu Xingyang's great reputation. Therefore, one of them turned around and went up the mountain. Ding Meng secretly wondered if the Celestial Heaven's Gate was a female sect. In fact, there were many female sects in the Desheng Kingdom. The main reason was that the secret cultivation of these sects were limited to females. Therefore, they only recruited female disciples. Under normal circumstances, men were rejected from entering and visiting. Moreover, once these sects joined, they would usually spend their entire life cultivating. They would never talk about marriage between men and women. Could the person Yu Xingyang wanted to meet be a woman? The person who went quickly returned. "Mr. Yu, the sect master invites you." At the peak of the mountain, under the celestial heaven's gates, solemn and dignified magnificent building, there was a very spacious and flat dueling platform. Dozens of green-clothed women surrounded the dueling platform. These disciples were all beautiful and moving, but their expressions were as cold as ice. Obviously, it was caused by the sect's rules. At the entrance of the temple on the first floor, a graceful and luxurious green-clothed old woman walked out, surrounded by a group of people. She looked a little old, but her bearing and elegance were outstanding among women. On the south side of the dueling platform, there was a guest table and chair. She sat down on the chair, and a dignified aura rushed out. Although Ding Meng was not an origin ability user, he could feel that the aura emitted from this woman's body was very oppressive. It simply made people unable to open their eyes. This was the sect master of the Celestial Heaven's Gate, Ling Yuelon. This sect was founded by her. It was said to seek immortality and Tao, but in reality, what she was most proud of was the Ling Xian Blade technique. It was just that the sect had never participated in the activities of the kingdom and was detached from the mortal world. However, for a famous blade technique expert like Yu Xingyang, the Celestial Heaven's Gate was an existence that reverberated like thunder in the ears. Upon seeing Ling Yuelon, Yu Xingyang took the initiative to stand up and say, "Sect Master Ling, today is the 20-year agreement. I have specially come to pay you a visit." Ling Yuelon did not directly answer him. Instead, she asked, "Little friend Yu, if I remember correctly, 7 years ago at the capital's martial arts symposium, your weapon was knocked out by a nameless person in one move, right?" Yu Xingyang's expression was calm. Not only did he not feel ashamed of this matter, he was instead filled with gratitude. Big Brother had interpreted the true meaning of Blade Master from another angle. So he answered, "Yes." Ling Yuelon continued, "But 2 years ago at the martial arts symposium, you were defeated by the kingdom's General Tianqing, right?" These words made Yu Xingyang's face turn a little red, but he still answered honestly, "My skills are not good enough, and I feel deeply ashamed. However, my skills are not as good as his, and I am willing to admit defeat." Only then did Ling Yuelon turn her head to look at him. "Your skills are not as good as his. You should know that 7 years ago, Tianqing was defeated by you in one move. How come you were defeated by him 2 years ago?" Yu Xingyang could understand the meaning of these words. The old man was doubting his own strength, and instead of improving, he was regressing. In these 5 years, he had spent most of his time searching for his big brother. When he had free time, he would study his own blade techniques. His improvement was definitely not as good as Tianqing's, but it was impossible for him to explain these twists and turns in this kind of situation. Victory and defeat are determined in an instant, just like the beauty of a beauty. Furthermore, the essence of the blade is not determined by victory or defeat. Yu Xingyang replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Only then did Ling Yuelon look at him in surprise. I still underestimated you. Not only have you not regressed in these years, you have even improved. Yu Xingyang could only bow and salute. Thank you for your praise, Sect Master. However, the 20-year agreement is already up. Can I bring Long Yao down the mountain? Only then did Ling Yuelon slowly stand up and let out a long sigh. Little friend Yu, my sect is also grateful for your deep feelings. 20 years ago, I had promised you that as long as you found my immortal imprint, I would agree to all your requests. Who would have thought that in a short 20 years, not only did you help me find it, but you also improved at lightning speed, becoming famous throughout the world and becoming a king of blades. I don't dare. Yu Xingyang saluted again. Ling Yuelon continued. But 20 years ago, I also said that Long Yao's talent is extraordinary, and she is a one-in-a-million genius who cultivates my Ling Xian's blade technique. 20 years later, when you come here again, if she has succeeded in cultivating it, then I can only ask you to leave. If she is unable to cultivate this blade technique, then you can take her away. Yu Xingyang carefully asked, how is Long Yao's progress? Ling Yuelon's tone became serious. I am very sorry. She has already mastered the blade techniques last year. I also intend to pass on the position of sect master to her. In the future, she will lead my sect and bring it to greater heights. Once one became the sect master of the Celestial Heavens sect, they would basically cut off their 7 emotions and 6 desires. It would be impossible for them to marry a man. Only now did Ding Meng understand that the person Yu Xingyang came to pick up was a childhood sweetheart. He didn't know why he joined such a strange sect, and Ling Yuelon also didn't know what kind of strange request she gave him, asking him to find some immortal imprint. Ling Yuelon probably did not expect that Yu Xingyang would really be able to find it. This process must be extremely arduous and dangerous, and it would be extremely difficult to accomplish without absolute strength. Therefore, Yu Xingyang could also be considered a genius of his generation. In a short span of 10 years, he had mastered the non-phase blade technique, and the non-phase divine blade was also famous throughout the world. It was not difficult to explain why he was an expert of the younger generation. Now that 20 years had passed, he didn't expect Ling Yuelon to throw out such a difficult problem. Ding Meng believed that with Yu Xingyang's personality, he would definitely not give up. During this journey, Ding Meng still had a certain level of understanding towards Yu Xingyang. Not only was Yu Xingyang a famous blade master, he was also a lonely and proud person. A proud person would never lower his proud head. Ling Yuelon seemed to be clear about this point, so she changed her words. I've also been in love with you when you were young, so I can naturally understand your thoughts. You are willing to wait for a person for 20 years, so your intentions are not fake, but this matter concerns the future and fate of my sect. How about this? I will give you a chance. If you can beat this Ling Xian's blade technique, I will allow you to leave the mountain today. Chapter 301. Yu Xingyang laughed bitterly. In front of Senior, I am willing to admit defeat. Ling Yuelon snorted coldly. If you think that I will fight, you are wrong. Of course, Yu Xingyang also knew that the strength of this Celestial Heavens Gates sect master was terrifying. He dared to say that she was not inferior to any of the famous experts in the 5 great countries, including Big Brother, because no one knew her depth. This was also the reason why those sects and nobles did not dare to cause trouble here. Even the king of the kingdom kept a respectful distance from the Celestial Heavens Gate. I wonder who will fight. Yu Xingyang heaved a sigh of relief. A sly smile appeared on Ling Yuelon's face. You will know very soon. At this moment, a beautiful figure slowly walked into the battle arena. She was dressed in white and fluttered like a fairy. Her steps were light and graceful, and it was a pity that she was wearing a round hat. A white veil hung down from the edge of the hat, covering her face, causing her appearance to be faintly discernible. Even if he could not see her face, just by looking at her charm and bearing, Ding Ming could imagine that she was a dignified and elegant, peerless beauty. But at this moment, Yu Xingyang's breathing stopped. He called out softly, "Yao Yao, I'm finally here." Yes, after 20 years of separation, after experiencing so many difficulties and obstacles, he finally met his former lover. Actually, it could not be considered a real meeting. He could only feel the scent of his lover from her aura. He looked proud, but he was actually devoted. Extreme to the heart, extreme to the emotions, extreme to the blade, each of them had their limits. This was also the essence of the non-phase blade technique. However, Long Yao's voice was emotionless. "This is an important place of the celestial sect. Please respect yourself." Yu Xingyang's heart sank. He finally experienced Ling Yuelan's cunning. Ling Yuelan turned and said to Long Yao, "Are you willing to follow him down the mountain?" Long Yao respectfully lowered her head. "I will follow Master's instructions." Ling Yuelan nodded. "All right, you can use our sect's Ling Xian blade technique to fight against his formless divine blade. If you lose, you can choose to leave with him. Then our immortal sect will also be dismissed. If you win against him, then there's no need for him to stay." His words were very tactful, but the meaning behind them was quite compelling. Immortal sects and lovers. You can only choose one. If you choose lovers, immortal sects will die. If you choose immortal sects will die. If you choose immortal sects, your lover will die. If you don't choose and I fight, then Yu Xingyang will definitely not be able to resist. He will definitely die. Long Yao's voice was still cold. "I will do my best." Ling Yuelan pointed to the center of the dueling platform. "Then you can begin now." The sunlight pierced through the clouds, and the two of them stood facing each other. The light seemed to have plated a layer of gauze on their bodies. Ling Xian's knife was already in Long Yao's hand. It was a curved short knife, like an enlarged version of a T-shaped claw knife. The entire blade had a strange curve to it. At this moment, Yu Xingyang was truly focused. In his eyes, the person standing in front of him was not the Long Yao that he yearned for day and night, but a very strong opponent. This was because he had heard of Ling Xian's saber technique. This saber technique could only be unleashed with the Ling Xian saber of the Celestial Heaven's Gate. Moreover, to practice this saber technique, one had to be at least at the Warlord realm. It focused on being agile, graceful, and confident. After it was used, it was as beautiful as a painting, dazzling the eyes of others. Just as you were stunned by this beauty, you would fall down. Therefore, it was named Ling Xian saber technique. However, the formless divine blade was not an undeserved reputation. The name it had made these years had shocked everyone. Even Tianqing's guest of honor. Yu Xingyang sat at the head of the table. But now, Yu Xingyang's hands were empty, and he did not look like he was hiding a blade. Ling Yuelan could not help but ask, "Where is your formless divine blade?" Yu Xingyang stared at Long Yao. "The blade is here." Ling Yuelan frowned. "Where is the blade?" Yu Xingyang said leisurely, "I don't have a blade in my hand, but I have a blade in my heart." Ling Yuelan did not understand these words. If it was 2 months ago, Yu Xingyang would not understand even more. Ever since he threw the formless divine blade into the river in the outskirts of the capital, his understanding of the essence of the blade technique had deepened by another level. The formless divine blade was said to be formless, but in reality, it had a form. How could a form blade compare to the formless blade in a person's heart? The hero's knife was the blade of faith in the hearts of many big brothers. In the past, he had always thought that success and recognition were his lifelong pursuit. However, after witnessing Zheng Ming and Aunt Xiao's encounter, he finally understood that although some people died, the blade did not die. The blade was one's thoughts. Thoughts and beliefs had always been there, and you could never eliminate them. If the person was there, the blade would be there. If the person was not there, the blade would still be there. This was the true, formless divine blade. Seeing that Yu Xingyang had no intention of using his blade, Long Yao coldly said, "Esteemed guest, be careful. Yu Xingyang was calm and composed. Please. There was no blade light, only a figure. The two figures crisscrossed back and forth. The surrounding disciples couldn't see them clearly at all. As for Dingming, in his eyes, the two figures didn't seem to have moved at all. Their figures were a bit blurry, and then the two of them just stood there. Ling Yuelan's face suddenly darkened. She finally understood what Yu Xingyang meant by the blade is there. Although he did not have a blade in his hand, Long Yao did not have one either. This was because Long Yao's Ling Xian saber couldn't be unsheathed at all. Every time she moved, Yu Xingyang would move even faster. With a ghostly speed, he held Long Yao's wrist. With her wrist restrained, how could she unsheath the saber? If the blade could not be pulled out, how could the Ling Xian blade technique be? That shockingly gorgeous saber technique, which was like a flying immortal, died before it was even born. This was actually the same principle as 7 years ago when his big brother dealt with him. With a stronger cultivation base, he could directly crush the opponent. But once the blade technique was unleashed, it could not be stopped. Like a raging river, it had to be unleashed in one go. Thus, in the center of the battle stage, the two figures, one black and one white, flashed, drawing out a series of illusions. Waves of turbulence surged, shaking the other disciples and forcing them to cover their faces and retreat. Dingming could not even stand still. He retreated out of the arena and lay on the ground, looking around in shock. 20 rounds passed quickly, but the blade did not appear. Yu Xingyang had completely suppressed Long Yao. This was the final move of the blade technique. If the blade could not be pulled out, Yu Xingyang would undoubtedly win this battle. At this time, Long Yao's left hand seemed to blur, as if a ball of energy was gathering at her wrist. Suddenly, the emerald green scabbard cracked into pieces. She didn't hesitate to use her origin energy to shatter the priceless scabbard. Her entire body flew up from the ground, accompanied by a dazzling brilliance that was even brighter than the sun. Ling Xian's blade had finally made its move. This move, Nine Heavens Mystical Maiden, was the most powerful move in Ling Xian's arsenal. In the air above the battle stage, multiple images of Long Yao flashed and appeared. Each of them had a different bearing, and each of them had a different style. Multiple rays of immortal light flashed between them. This scene was like an immortal descending to the mortal world, intoxicating everyone. However, Yu Xingyang was not drunk. He knew that once the mysterious lady of the ninth heaven came out, no one in the world could withstand it, including himself. However, he was also confident that he could use his mutual destruction. As the name implied, once this move was used, both sides would suffer losses. He was confident in this. He had expected everything, but he didn't expect the following change. Even Long Yao herself didn't expect it. Because when Long Yao descended towards him, the powerful force she emitted caused the sharp saber chi to instantly shatter the veil covering her face, like a butterfly fluttering in the sunlight. Hence, a peerlessly beautiful face appeared before Yu Xingyang's eyes. This was the face that had appeared at the riverbank at the foot of the mountain. At that time, he was still young and had not awakened his origin energy. But he loved to travel. He loved mountains. He loved water. He loved to play freely, and he loved to run around without any worries. But that day he saw the girl by the riverbank. She was staring at the clear water, which was filled with schools of fish. Yu Xingyang quickly ran up to her. "Why don't you go down?" The girl shook her head. "I don't want to go down." A girl like her who had been taught etiquette since she was young would definitely not jump into the river to catch fish. Yu Xingyang puffed out a small chest. "Then I'll go catch it for you, okay?" Looking at his sincere eyes, the girl hesitated, but she still slowly nodded. Thus, Yu Xingyang cheered and dove down. Not long after, he came ashore with a lively golden koi fish in his hands. The girl curiously teased the fish. "It's so pretty." Yu Xingyang happily placed the fish in front of her. "For you." The girl happily accepted it. "Right, what's your name?" Yu Xingyang proudly replied. "My surname is Yu. My name is Yu Xingyang." The girl finally smiled. Her smile, was as brilliant as 100 flowers blooming. It was indescribably beautiful. Yu Xingyang was puzzled. "What's wrong?" The girl giggled. "No wonder you're so good at catching fish. So your surname is Yu." Yu Xingyang also smiled. "Yes, I'm Yu." The girl began to laugh again. She laughed so hard that she could not breathe. But looking at her smile, Yu Xingyang was stunned. But in the next moment, all the beauty, all the joy, all the dazzling, all turned into nothingness. In Ding Meng's vision, Long Yao had already landed on the ground. Yu Xingyang stood there without moving. Ling Xian's blade whistled through the air, but Yu Xingyang still stood there without moving. With a poochie sound, the curved blade sank into Yu Xingyang's heart. He still did not move. He only stared deeply at Long Yao, who was right in front of him, and softly said, "My surname is Yu. My name is Yu Xingyang." Long Yao's expression was also shocked. She quickly pulled back Ling Xian's blade. Blood flowed out from Yu Xingyang's chest. At this moment, the entire battle arena was dead silent. Chapter 302. Mr. Yu, Mr. Yu. Ding Meng exclaimed as he ran into the arena. Yu Xingyang waved his hand slightly, indicating that he was fine because his waist was still very straight and there was still a smile on his face. "I did not lose. However," Ling Yuelon said meaningfully, "but you can leave now." Yu Xingyang revealed a strange expression. "Leave?" "Yes." Ling Yuelon nodded in satisfaction. "You can leave the mountain now and quickly leave this place. I will definitely not make things difficult for you." Yu Xingyang ignored her, his gaze landing on Long Yao in front of him. Long Yao held the blade in her hand, cupped her fists, and bowed slightly to him, giving him a secular etiquette. Yu Xingyang was silent for a long time, then nodded. "I understand. I'll leave now." Ding Meng immediately came up to support him and slowly walked up the mountain path. The sky gradually darkened, and the afterglow of the setting sun sprinkled on the stone slabs of the dueling platform. But the blood had long since dried up. Ling Yuelon stared into the distance. After an unknown period of time, she finally muttered, "He's right. He didn't lose." Yu Xingyang did not lose, so the one who lost was definitely Long Yao. However, Long Yao did not dare to say anything. Ling Yuelon said expressionlessly, "You can leave now." Long Yao revealed a shocked expression. "Where does Master want me to go?" Ling Yuelon said, "I want you to leave the mountain now and leave this place. Don't come back for a short period of time." Long Yao asked with a trembling voice, "Master, why are you doing this?" Ling Yuelon sighed. "Even though you are still here, your heart is no longer here." Long Yao was so scared that she knelt down with a plop. "Master, I grew up in the celestial sect and have never been disloyal." Ling Yuelon stroked her hair and sighed slightly. "I know, but you still lost this time. Because you didn't kill him, you lost." Long Yao did not understand these words, but fortunately, Ling Yuelon explained, "There is no blade in your hand, but there is a blade in your heart." Isn't this talking about you as well? You seem to be heartless, but in reality, there is love in the human world, and it is even better than the immortal Tao. If you stay by his side, perhaps your saber techniques will truly improve. You can leave now. After saying that, she ignored Long Yao's pleas and turned to walk into the inner hall. On the other side of the mountain path, Ding Meng was supporting Yu Xingyang as they slowly made their way to the foot of the mountain. Yu Xingyang's injuries were very serious. Even though Long Yao hadn't used all of her strength in that last attack, and had even pulled back at the critical moment, that attack had still heavily injured his heart. His origin energy foundation had been greatly affected, and even walking was very difficult for him. "Mr. Yu, let's take a break." Ding Meng helped him walk toward the snow rock. Yu Xingyang sat down cross-legged, leaning against a withered tree and closing his eyes to rest. Ding Meng, on the other hand, took a water bag to the riverside to fill it with water. When Ding Meng returned with water, Yu Xingyang suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with coldness. It was also at this moment that countless black crows in the depths of the withered forest were startled. They turned into black spots and disappeared into the horizon. Even though Ding Ming couldn't sense any origin energy or aura, he knew that this was an abnormal phenomenon. Either a demonic beast had appeared in the forest, or an enemy was nearby. The person hadn't arrived yet, but his killing intent and aura had already caused the surrounding animals to scatter like birds. Yu Xingyang suddenly opened his mouth. Ding Ming. Ding Ming ran over. Mr. Yu. Yu Xingyang's expression was very serious. Ding Ming, don't be impulsive. No matter what happens, you must remember that you must protect your own life and live well. These words were exactly the same as what Zheng Ming had said before he had left. Ding Ming hesitated. Mr. Yu, Yu Xingyang sighed. Ding Ming, I can be considered half your master, right? You're still young. If you're lucky enough to awaken in the future, I hope that you can pass on my phaseless blade technique. Can you do it? Ding Ming respectfully lowered his head. Mr. Yu, please don't worry. If I can live, I will definitely do it. Yu Xingyang nodded. Very good. Now, please lend me your precious hero's knife. There must be a deeper meaning behind his actions. Ding Ming didn't hesitate and quickly handed over the knife. Yu Xingyang lovingly stroked the blade. His expression was somewhat excited as he muttered, I never thought that I, Yu Xingyang, would be so lucky to be blessed by the heavenly spirits of these big brothers. Today, I can wield this hero's knife to kill enemies. Yu Xingyang has no regrets in this life. I will protect it with all my strength. When the word kill enemies came out, Ding Ming was shocked. Were there enemies nearby? How could there only be enemies? And there was more than one enemy. Ding Ming soon saw a group of people emerge from a small path on the side of the withered forest. There were 5 men and 1 woman, a total of 6 people. The leader was actually Bai Pinghai. The 5 people behind him were all disciples of the Bai clan. Yu Xingyang recognized 2 of them. One was Zhan Long, who had been killed by General Zheng Ming at Tianqing's birthday banquet. The other was Zhan Long's elder brother, Zhan. The other 2 men were different. The man on the left was dressed luxuriously and had an arrogant expression. The man on the right was dressed shabbily and had an absent-minded expression. As for the remaining woman, she was sandwiched between the 2 men. Her appearance was beautiful and her clothes were exquisite. Clearly, she was from a noble sect. These 3 people had one thing in common. They were all very young. They looked no more than 30 years old. While Yu Xingyang was secretly shocked, Bai Pinghai's expression was even more surprised. He didn't expect to meet Yu Xingyang in such a place. Brother Yu, how have you been? Bai Pinghai took the initiative to speak. However, his voice sounded particularly strange in this withered forest where there was no one around. Yu Xingyang was silent. Then he said, Tianqing sent you, right? Bai Pinghai was instantly stunned. Yu Xingyang's lips curled into a cold smile. You thought I was dead, right? Bai Pinghai showed a strange expression. What are you talking about, Brother Yu? I don't understand. Yu Xingyang laughed even more disdainfully. Bai Pinghai, you don't have to pretend anymore. Tianqing knows that I have a death appointment at the Celestial Heaven's Gate today, so he asked you to wait at the foot of the mountain. Once I am killed by the Celestial Heaven's Gate, you can take Ding Ming away. Bai Pinghai didn't speak. At this time, it was often Zhan Long who spoke. Senior Yu, as a member of the extraterritorial Devil Kingdom, you have no right to take the people of the flourishing kingdom out of the country. We came here this time hoping to send Brother Ding back to his hometown. Yu Xingyang couldn't help but raise his head and laugh. I really admire you. Every time you do something shameless, you can always use the banner of righteousness. But this is normal because Bai Pinghai is such a person. His brain is full of thieves and prostitutes, but his mouth is full of benevolence, righteousness, and morality. That's why he can teach disciples like you. If you want to kill Ding Ming, you have to ask me first. At this time, Ding Ming finally understood. Although big brother Zheng Ming had died, they were not willing to give up. They wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. Facing Yu Xingyang's straightforwardness, Zhan Long actually couldn't refute for the first time. After all, Yu Xingyang was not Zheng Ming. He could see the motives of these people at a glance. At this point, Bai Pinghai also knew that it was useless to deny it. He suddenly cupped his hands. Brother Yu, you're the guest of honor among the guests of General Tian. You are the king of sabers. You don't have to hurt the harmony between the two families. Yu Xingyang laughed again. I completely understand what you mean, but it's useless to me. Don't waste your breath. Bring it on. Bai Pinghai took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart. The situation had turned out like this, which was the last thing he wanted to see. Ding Ming was nothing more than a defenseless child, happy to get involved. However, Zhan Long had volunteered to come to the celestial heaven's gate for the sake of befriending the Skywings. Zhan Long wanted to come, and so did a few of his fellow disciples. This was especially true of his precious daughter, Bai Ling. She had long since grown tired of staying in the capital, clamoring that she had to go out this time no matter what. Just in case, Bai Pinghai decided to come along as well. With this lineup, let alone one Ding Ming, even 10 Ding Mings and 100 Ding Mings wouldn't be able to escape from their clutches. Who would have thought that Yu Xingyang would be alive and well? With Bai Pinghai's strength, he wouldn't be able to last more than 10 moves against Yu Xingyang. Bai Pinghai patiently said, Brother Yu, if you let me bring Ding Ming back, the Tian family and the Bai family will owe you a huge favor. You will repay it in the future. Yu Xingyang sneered. I can't afford to owe you a favor. Who knows, maybe I won't repay you one day. Bai Pinghai was helpless. I didn't think that the world-famous Yu Xingyang would actually be willing to block the path of my Bai family for a peasant boy. Yu Xingyang leisurely said, I also didn't think that the famous Tianqing would forcefully cause 2 lives to be lost in order to cover up his son's evil deeds. The flourishing kingdom won't last long with evil people like you in power. Bai Pinghai's voice finally turned cold. You don't have the right to say whether it will last long or not. However, I advise you that if you really want to be enemies with us, you should know what happened to our former enemies. Yu Xingyang spat. Aside from your belly full of evil tricks, what else can you do? In my Yu Xingyang's eyes, you are all ants. I don't need to care about the feelings of ants. Bai Pinghai didn't speak anymore. He didn't just rely on schemes and tricks to get to where he was today. He still had strength, because he suddenly realized that something was wrong. In the past, Yu Xingyang had always been taciturn and indifferent. Today, Yu Xingyang didn't seem to be any different, but he was several times more talkative than usual. Seeing Bai Pinghai's shifty eyes, Yu Xingyang was secretly anxious. He also knew that it wasn't a problem to hide it from those young people, but it was very difficult to hide it from a villain like Bai Pinghai. Because villains were often very meticulous, the other party would find out that he was seriously injured sooner or later. Under normal circumstances, Yu Xingyang wouldn't put 10 Bai Pinghai in his eyes. However, when he was seriously injured, even half of Bai Pinghai could take his life. Now, he could recover for a while. If he could alert the people of the celestial heaven's gate, maybe Ding Ming could be saved. Thinking of this, Yu Xingyang slowly raised his right hand and gently hooked his finger at Bai Pinghai. Come. Chapter 303. Yu Xingyang was calling for Bai Pinghai, but Bai Pinghai would definitely not come. He carefully looked at the other party and said after a long time, Zhan Long, Zhan, Chengwen, Chengwu, you are all experts in using blades. You can take this opportunity to ask Senior Yu for advice. Senior Yu just came down from the celestial heaven's gate and was injured. He has at most 40% of his strength left. If the 4 of you work together, you'll be on par with Senior Yu. Whoever defeats the formless blade will be famous throughout the world. When he said this, the 3 people behind him immediately revealed a joyful expression. If one of them managed to kill Yu Xingyang, it would be a supreme glory. Only the young man called Cheng still looked absent-minded. No one knew what he was thinking. The first person to move was naturally Zhan Long. Although his strength was not strong, his eyes were very sharp. The direction he moved towards was not Yu Xingyang, but Ding Ming, who was beside the snow cliff. He calculated that if Ding Ming was attacked, Yu Xingyang would definitely protect him. Sure enough, the short sword turned into 3 shadows and arrived one after another, blocking Ding Ming's left, right, and back paths. Yu Xingyang just casually waved his hand, and Zhan Long felt an irresistible force coming from the air. He had no choice but to retreat. However, as soon as Yu Xingyang waved his hand, Two beams of cold light shot toward his face. Bai Pinghai would not waste such an opportunity. This was not the battle stage of the martial arts conference, and it was not for the sake of looking good. Every move was about timing, and every move was filled with killing intent. Bai Pinghai's two wrist blades were like poisonous snakes that tightly wrapped around Yu Xingyang. The dark gold hero's knife danced in the air, creating a curtain of light that blocked the attacks of the wrist blades. The ding-ding-ding sounds were endless. Bai Pinghai did not use any martial arts. He was very smart because he knew that Yu Xingyang was the best at breaking all kinds of martial arts. This kind of strong attack was actually very effective at this time. Swish! Suddenly, there was a slight sound of wind breaking in the forest. Not good. Yu Xingyang had already seen it. Bai Ling waved her hand in the distance and created a shining light spot. The light spot flew into the air and exploded into countless flying needles. The flying needles formed a big net and covered Dingmeng. Yu Xingyang could no longer sit still. He suddenly stood up and kicked Dingmeng away. Then, he pushed out his left palm in the air. A wave of hot air immediately tore the net into pieces. At this time, two long swords in the air slashed diagonally. Zhan Yi and Cheng Wu attacked his shoulders. Bai Pinghai's wrist blades also attacked from the bottom up. Yu Xingyang had to retreat. Yu Xingyang's body was 5 meters away. Bai's wrist blades were also attacking his lower body to attack. An attack. Bai's also wrist blades. Bai Pinghai obviously saw through the clues and said with a sinister smile, "His formless divine saber is not on him." Everyone attacked together. As soon as his voice fell, the Zhanlong brothers once again waved their weapons and rushed forward. Accompanying them was Bai Ling's net. This time, the color of the net changed. It became green with a hint of blue. Obviously, there was ice element origin ability attached to it. Looking at the degree of color, they didn't expect Bai Pinghai's daughter's strength to be so good. Ding, 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 ding. A series of sharp noises rang out as the two Zhanlong brothers, as well as that Cheng Wuchuan, were jolted back. The web between the thumb and forefinger of the three people was slightly numb. However, amidst the torrential rain of flying needles, Bai Pinghai flashed to Yu Xingyang's flank. This time his wrist blade did not chop and stab. Rather, it left his wrist and flew to attack. Yu Xingyang was taken aback. He had never seen Bai Pinghai use such a move in the past. It must be a killing move. Ding! The hero's knife knocked away the first wrist blade. Ka! The second wrist blade was not knocked away in time. Yu Xingyang opened his mouth and bit the tip of the knife. It was really dangerous. He could not be faster or slower. This was due to his many years of rich combat experience. However, Dingmeng clearly saw that Yu Xingyang did not dodge all the flying needles. His calf still flashed with blood. Bai Pinghai's spirit was suddenly lifted. He realized that he had overestimated Yu Xingyang. At this moment, Yu Xingyang's strength was at most 10%. From the moment Yu Xingyang stood up and kicked Dingmeng away, he had continuously used his origin ability to dodge the attacks. His chest was constantly bleeding. The injury he had suffered before was far more serious than he had imagined. "Kill him for me." Bai Pinghai raised his arm and shouted. Yu Xingyang's face changed. He finally understood why Bai Pinghai used his wrist blades at this time. The tip of the blade was stained with a strange poison. Yu Xingyang's lips were slightly numb. It started from his mouth and went straight to his face. His vision was faintly blurred. Courting death, Yu Xingyang forcibly urged his origin ability. Facing Bai Pinghai, he suddenly jumped and used the most classic move, fish leaping over Dragon Gate, backhand blade. This leap was like an illusion. It passed through Bai Pinghai's body. Gee! Fresh blood sprayed out. Bai Pinghai's face suddenly became distorted. He fell to the ground and rolled nonstop. However, his entire right arm had been cut off from the shoulder by Yu Xingyang. This momentum did not stop. Yu Xingyang landed on the ground, rolled, got up, squatted, and backhanded blade. A circle of dark golden blade light rippled out like a wave. Zhanlong, Zhan Yi, and Cheng Wu's weapons were immediately knocked out of their hands. They were also sent flying. A heart-wrenching scream sounded on the snowy ground. It turned out that Zhanlong's right wrist had also been cut off. His strength was the weakest. He could barely withstand the impact of the origin ability, but he could not block this terrifying blade light. This group of people was aghast. This Yu Xingyang actually still had such strength, even when he was seriously injured. One could imagine that if he was not injured, everyone combined would not be able to withstand a single move from him. However, after injuring 4 people, Yu Xingyang also stood up shakily. With a pu sound, he spat out a mouthful of red and purple blood. The corner of his mouth had already turned black. His whole face had also turned purple. It was obvious that the poison was spreading. "Father!" In the distance, Bai Ling saw Bai Pinghai kneel on the ground in pain. She was both shocked and angry. At this moment, she no longer held back. She gathered origin ability energy in her palms and fiercely pushed them out. This time, it was not a flying needle. Instead, it was an icy blue steel nail that was as thick as a finger that flew out. The flying nail speed was not fast, but once it was shot out, the snow on the ground froze at a speed visible to the naked eye. The surrounding air seemed to have solidified, making people feel suffocated. This thing was definitely not something that could be blocked by a weapon. Yu Xingyang was already an arrow at the end of its flight. He had overdrawn his origin ability energy time and time again, and had long since reached his limit. At this moment, he could not care less. His left palm once again slapped out. Thermal energy poured out like flames. He did not want to repel the flying nail. Instead, he wanted to directly melt it. Unfortunately, this time he was wrong. When the icy blue flying nail came in contact with the heat, it suddenly turned into a thin and black needle. The black needle shot into Yu Xingyang's palm like lightning. Black demon, soul-stealing needle? Yu Xingyang was also shocked. The material of this needle was refined from the bones of the demon beast Black Demon Vajra. It was as indestructible as kryptonite. How could it be melted by heat? The key point was that this flying needle was also contaminated with a strange poison. Yu Xingyang lowered his head to look. A black dot appeared in the center of his palm. A bone-deep pain surged up his arm. In the blink of an eye, the black dot became the size of a bean. At this moment, Yu Xingyang immediately grasped the hero's knife tightly. Without hesitation, he slashed at his own wrist. "Kacha!" A crisp sound rang out. His left palm also fell to the ground. Blood immediately dyed the snow a purple-black color. His clean and decisive strike immediately shocked everyone present. Everyone was shocked by his cold and decisive spirit, but he didn't even blink his eyebrows. At this moment, a figure appeared behind him. It turned out that Cheng Wan, who had not made a move until now, had finally made his move. He somersaulted in the air and landed on Yu Xingyang's back. A large mass of heat surged in his palm, condensing into a rotating red ball that did not dissipate. This was undoubtedly a consummate skill. When Bai Pinghai saw this, he took advantage of the opportunity. He picked up the remaining half of the knife and charged at Yu Xingyang. On the other side, Zhan Yi also charged over. Yu Xingyang was attacked from 3 sides and had no choice but to retreat. His body swayed slightly, and Cheng Wan somersaulted over his head, landing right behind Bai Pinghai and Zhan Yi. At this moment, something that no one expected happened. Cheng Wan slammed his palms down in the air. This was a desperate attack that exhausted all of his origin energy, and it solidly slammed into Bai Pinghai's back. Bai Pinghai would never have dreamed that the disciple he was most proud of would actually try to kill him at the most critical moment. The source energy produced by the 2 blazing sun palms directly entered his body, causing blood to spurt out of Bai Pinghai's mouth like a fountain. As he fell, he waved his hand behind his back, and the tip of the knife drew a rainbow in the air. Cheng Wan also fell, and fell straight onto the snowy ground. The knife that had left his hand instantly pierced through Cheng Wan's heart. This soul-stirring scene disappeared in the blink of an eye. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't react at all. They couldn't figure out what had happened. This was especially true for Cheng Wu. He and Cheng Wan were biological brothers. He only knew that his younger brother was taciturn and didn't get along well with the others. His relationship with the other disciples was also very bad. But even if it wasn't good, at such a critical moment, he had actually helped a powerful enemy attack his own master. What was this? Father! Father! Bai Ling cried as she ran over, helping Zhang Yi and the others to support by Ping Hai. On the other side, Ding Ming also ran over, crying out in surprise. Yu Xingyang knelt on one knee and used his remaining hand to pick up the dying Chengwen. This young man, who he had never met before, had actually saved him at the last moment. He also couldn't figure it out. Streams of blood spurted out of Cheng Wen's mouth. His entire body spasmed violently, but this time his expression was no longer dazed. Instead, it was replaced with a resolute look. He coughed violently as he pushed his origin energy to the limit. A trace of blood finally returned to his pale face. Yu Xingyang's heart sank. He knew that this young man wouldn't be able to live any longer. This was the final radiance of the setting sun. He's also a martial expert. Chengwen struggled to speak. His words were already unclear. He actually used poison. Poison? This is too unfair to you. Yu Xingyang's right hand immediately clenched. After Zheng Ming, this was the second young man he had met who asked for fairness. The young man's blood was still warm. It wasn't cold yet. Chengwen gasped for breath again. The Great Wei Dynasty. Only I can defeat you. In another 20 years. I will definitely defeat you. He practically roared out the last sentence because this was the purpose of his trip. Yu Xingyang looked at his young face and his determined expression. He slowly nodded and solemnly replied, "Yes." Hearing this word come out of Yu Xingyang's mouth, Chengwen suddenly smiled. His smile was as pure as a child's. It was as if he had accomplished his greatest wish and had no more regrets in this life. The last trace of the setting sun shone on his face. His face paled once more. He muttered with a sigh, "It's just such a pity. I'm going to die." After he finished speaking, his eyes slowly closed. His head tilted to the side, and he no longer breathed. Chapter 304. The sun had already set, and the sky darkened. An even more shocking darkness swept over them. Two streams of black blood flowed out of Yu Xingyang's eyes. His eyes were lifeless and empty. Ding Ming knew that this was the effect of Bai Ping Hai and his daughter's poison. If Yu Xingyang did not use his origin energy to its limit, he might have been able to control it, but once he did, his blood would also flow faster. Now that the poison had spread to his eyes, he had already lost his sight. However, his expression was still very calm. He slowly put down Cheng Wen's corpse and then sat down cross-legged. Ding Ming crawled over and carefully called out, Mr. Yu. A cold wind blew through the withered forest. Yu Xingyang's face still had that carefree expression. Ding Ming, do you know the war song of the Devil Kingdom's herdsman? Ding Ming hurriedly nodded. I know. It's that song, The Blood of Heroes. Yu Xingyang proudly said, Ding Ming, can you play a song for me? Ding Ming took in a deep breath. Although he did not know what Yu Xingyang's intentions were, he did not hesitate at this moment. He took out the green bone leaf from his bosom and placed it next to his mouth. This time, the song was different from the one at the riverside in the capital. The original scenery of home was filled with tranquility, gentleness, and sorrow. However, this song, The Blood of Heroes, was filled with determination, sonorous, and heroic. As soon as the song began, Yu Xingyang also sang with it. The two voices spread far and wide, echoing in the depths of the mountains. At this time, Long Yao, who had just walked to the pavilion of Celestial Heaven's Gate, finally heard it. Heroes pledged to flow hot blood, fear no frost and snow, pride and righteousness in the world. Let the name be engraved in the flood of life for 100 generations. The raging fire will not cease for 1,000 years. The radiance after the sacrifice of my body. Heroes, seek only the past. The brilliance is enough. Ah, right and wrong, advance and retreat, life and death, I have long seen through. Ah, if I can find a good friend, what more can I ask for in this life? With my hands, I can change the spring and autumn of this generation. Heartless, I can proudly step over 1,000 mountains without regret. When the song ended, Ding Ming put down the green bone leaf and was shocked to find that Yu Xingyang's entire body was surrounded by bright white flames. He looked just like a devil spirit in the underworld. He did not know that this was one of the strange techniques of the extraterritorial devil nation. At the cost of completely burning one's origin point, it could instantly increase one's combat power by several times. Run, Bai Pinghai suddenly broke free from the support of the crowd and used all his strength to shout out this word, and then he rushed towards Yu Xingyang. He had seen this mystical technique before, and he knew that Yu Xingyang was deliberately sacrificing himself to protect Ding Ming. He also threw caution to the wind, hoping to sacrifice himself to protect his daughter and disciples. Unfortunately, it was too late. Yu Xingyang's eyes were completely white and glowing. His pupils flashed, and Bai Pinghai's head was raised high. His throat made a ka-ka sound, and the hero's knife hooked his chin, lifting him up. The dark golden knife flashed again, and Bai Pinghai's head fell to the ground. His corpse fell to the side, blood spurting out of his mouth. Zhan Long, Zhan Yi, Cheng Wu, and Bai Ling were scared out of their wits. They no longer had the courage to fight, so they turned around and ran towards the river. This was a scene that Ding Ming would never forget. He could no longer see the eyes of light, and all he could see was a curtain of white light falling like rain. The dark golden hero's knife was like golden silk in this curtain of rain, and it was more like a celestial rain falling from the night sky. 3 seconds later, the 4 living people were automatically dismembered. Broken arms and legs flew all over the sky, and the blood formed an extremely dense blood mist that condensed at the riverside and didn't disperse for a long time. This battle was too tragic and too cruel, but this world had always been like this. If Ding Ming had fallen into their hands, his fate might have been even worse. Yu Xingyang's true body had appeared. He leaned against the rock by the river, and he breathed weakly. In an instant, he aged a few decades. His hair was white, and his skin was gray and dark. His entire body was gradually shrinking. Mr. Yu, Mr. Yu. Ding Ming ran over. Yu Xingyang could no longer see this world. He suddenly smiled and said, 20 years ago, I sent Yao Yao away on this grassland. But I know that 20 years later, we will meet again here. Yao Yao, don't you think so? Ding Ming was shocked. A white shadow descended from the sky and quickly landed onto the rock. Long Yao immediately supported Yu Xingyang. Brother Xing, cheer up. Take the elixir of our sect. Yu Xingyang smiled. He did not take the elixir. He only stretched out his withered right hand, which was like a claw, and gently stroked Long Yao's beautiful face. I knew you would come. I have never misjudged anyone in my life. Long Yao's tears immediately flowed out of her eyes, and she gently held his hand. He sent her up the mountain 20 years ago so that he could meet her again 20 years later. He finally saw her 20 years later, but this was the last time he would see her. Yu Xingyang would never see her face again. Yu Xingyang murmured inside. What fortune is there in meeting? What sorrow is there in parting? What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? This was the poem engraved on the hero's knife. This was his life. He had a premonition a long time ago. However, when he read it out loud, Yu Xingyang's expression was indescribably emotional. He trembled as he raised the knife. When I saw this saber for the first time, I knew that my fate would definitely be changed by it. Just like when I saw you for the first time, I knew that my life would definitely belong to you. When I saw this saber for the second time, I had a feeling that my life would come to an end soon. Furthermore, it would definitely end on this grassland where we met. I would definitely see you again. This was indeed a miraculous premonition. That was why he had been painstakingly searching for his elder brother, Ding Wenhe, and this hero's knife for the past 7 years. He knew that they had a mysterious connection with him, and now he finally found it. So this was fate. However, he still smiled and said, "But I am already satisfied." Ding Ming and Long Yao both understood this. He had loved deeply and was also loved deeply. He had been brilliant, and he had also been dim. He had pursued, and he had also lost. He had even sacrificed his precious life for the inheritance of the hero's knife. However, he did not regret it, because his life was already filled with meaning. Yu Xingyang once again held Long Yao's hand tightly. Yao Yao, after I leave, please escort Brother Ding Ming to the UMO villa in the extraterritorial Devil Nation. Hand him over to my clansmen. This is my last wish. Long Yao was already choked with sobs. How could she still speak? Yu Xingyang raised the knife again. Ding Ming. Ding Ming had already knelt on the ground. Mr. Yu. Yu Xingyang said, I don't know if I, Yu Xingyang, can be considered half the successor of this hero's knife. Ding Ming's eyes were also filled with tears. No one is more qualified than Mr. Yu. I should call Mr. Yu Elder Brother Yu. Ding Ming will never forget Elder Brother Yu's kindness to me. Mr. Yu is truly the best knife in the world. Yu Xingyang finally revealed a contented smile. He slowly extended the knife and uttered the last words of his life. Ding Ming, this hero's knife, please don't let down everyone who has sacrificed for it. Ding Ming solemnly took the knife, then knelt on the ground and respectfully kowtowed 3 times to Yu Xingyang. However, when he raised his head again, Yu Xingyang had already stopped breathing. His entire body seemed to have turned into ashes. Brother Xing, Brother Xing. Mr. Yu, Ding Ming, and Long Yao's cries of surprise resounded throughout the wilderness. However, the only answer they received was the cold wind in the cold night. The cold wind mercilessly swept past. The ashes on the ground danced. Yu Xingyang's ashes had already dissipated in the wind. This generation of masters was amazing when he was alive. His name was known far and wide. However, after he died, he did not leave anything behind. Perhaps the wind was his final destination. It allowed him to play freely and run without worries until the end of the world. Swoosh! Ding Ming exited the intermediate consciousness space. On the dark and cold beach of the wooden house, the shadow was standing on a rock, staring at the undulating tide. He held a green bone leaf in his hand and was playing the song Hero's Blood. The song was still sonorous and powerful. It spread out over the vast sea. There was a sense of heroism and no regrets. After a long time, the shadow slowly turned around and gently bowed to Ding Ming. In Ding Ming's eyes, the shadow did not seem to be a shadow, nor was it himself. It was Yu Xingyang. This was because Mr. Yu's glorious image was forever engraved in his heart. I wonder if this knife of mine is considered the best knife in the world this year. Yu Xingyang's carefree and proud expression seemed to be vivid in his mind. Ding Ming quietly replied, yes. The shadow's expression seemed to be as carefree as Mr. Yu's. I wonder if I, Yu Xingyang, am considered the successor of this hero's knife? Ding Ming nodded solemnly. Yes. The shadow bowed slightly again, then finally disappeared into light. Xiao AI said, ACT 5570, congratulations on successfully constructing your 8th origin. Ding Ming naturally knew that he had succeeded. A fiery red origin had appeared in the center of his brain. It had completely established a connection with the 7 origin points in his heart. At the same time, it had also formed a virtual line with the diamond star fusing art. Overall, it was as if there was a sword hidden in his body. The hilt was his heart, while the tip was his brain. His energy reserves were more abundant, and the energy fluctuations were more powerful. His entire body seemed to be enveloped in layers of fiery red energy, which radiated a luster that spread outward. However, he did not look happy. Little Rascal sighed silently. Only now did she realize that the memories of not changing one's choice were so tragic, and so heroic. It turned out that Ding Ming was only able to live to this day because these people had fought for him. Ding Ming, don't let Mr. Yu's good intentions go to waste, Little Rascal consoled. Ding Ming also silently nodded. Xiao AI, how long did I cultivate this time? Xiao AI said in a low voice. We estimated that it would take 65 days, but this time it took 702 hours, 31 minutes, and 9 seconds. You completed it ahead of time, and in one go as well. You are worthy of praise. Ding Ming pondered for a moment before asking, "Is the certification exam about to begin?" Little rascal's spirits were lifted. "It's today," Ding Ming said. "Then let's set off." Chapter 305. Ding Ming came out of the sensor pod and noticed that Mr. Cuddle was different from his usual self. First of all, he was no longer wearing his odd, tattered work clothes. Instead, he was wearing a black formal suit. Next, he replaced his iron shoes with a pair of fine leather shoes. He even shaved his beard and sideburns and wore a small top hat on his bald head. He looked very energetic. "Kid, you've been lying in bed for a month. If you didn't come out soon, I would have had to wake you up myself." Cuddle walked over. "Hurry up and go downstairs. Xiaoyu will send you to school." Ding Ming hesitated. "Mr. Cuddle, aren't you going to Starlight University?" Cuddle smiled. "Don't worry, I'll be there in a moment. I might even be there before you." Starlight University's annual exam wasn't held in the real world. Instead, it was held in a virtual space within Starlight Server. The virtual space was the exclusive testing area for the Battlecraft League. Only the candidates could enter through their virtual cabins. As for the viewing area inside the university, it was currently packed with people. Everyone was looking forward to the emergence of this year's Starlight University's young experts. The spectator area wasn't completely open to the public. There were three types of people who could directly enter and leave. The first was the people from Starlight University and the Starlight Group, who could enter and leave without restriction. The second was the immediate family members of the participants, and the third was the spectators allowed by Starlight University. In fact, the third group was the most numerous. The media, reporters, and talent scouts made up half of the audience. Starlight University's exam was a grand event that everyone paid attention to. After that, there were politicians, academies, families, corporations, and so on. In short, these people were all from the more prestigious classes. Everyone was here for no other purpose. Once someone passed the exam and performed well, all the major powers would fight over that talent. Starlight University's passing rate was always 100%. In other words, the talents that everyone wanted to find today were none other than the most dazzling few on the leaderboard. The viewing area looked like a large football field that could hold 100,000 spectators. There were stands in all directions, and the stands were filled with people. Dai Yi, Aaron, and Su Qianqian were sitting in the first row of the South Grandstand. It was a good place to watch the match. The football field in front of them was certainly not a real football field, but a crystal projector of the latest generation. It would display the data, pictures, and third-person view of the participating students clearly in front of the tens of thousands of people in the stadium through the director. At this moment, there were only 43 virtual names on the empty space. They were the 43 top students that Starlight had nurtured this year. Every name was written in illusory characters. In the first stage of the evaluation, the font would increase according to each student's score. The student's score would be measured using a thermometer, and there would be a meter on both sides of each name. The meter on the left represented the overall score, which included the various indicators of the Superpower Affairs Center. It would only show the score, and it would not reveal any personal information such as cultivation techniques, martial arts, secret manuals, or grimoires. On the other hand, the meter on the right represented the popularity score. This popularity score was generated through the votes of the live audience. This was also very easy to understand, because this was the commercial value. The talent scouts of the Interstellar Battle League had been eyeing this for a long time. The talents they chose might not be the strongest, but they would definitely be the most popular students. Now, the 43 illusory characters were displayed one by one on the empty space. However, he was a little unhappy because, according to the order of admission, Ding Ming's name was at the bottom. Furthermore, his name was dull and colorless. Overall score, 0. Popularity score, for it was normal for the overall score to be 0. After all, the exam had not started yet. However, a popularity score of 4 was a little pitiful because there were not many students in Starlight University who had heard of Ding Ming. Currently, Some of the names had already risen half a meter high. For example, Liang Yaran was the #1 campus belle of Starlight University. Needless to say, half of the male students in the stadium had voted for her. Her current popularity score was 20,882 points. Next, Sun Shirling and Zhang Hai's votes were also high. Their popularity scores were 19,989 points and 18,565 points, respectively. Although Sun Shirling's beauty was not as good as Liang Yaran's, her popularity was not low either. Meanwhile, Zhang Hai, with his own strength and handsome appearance, was naturally the image of a male god in the hearts of many girls. Next was Du Mo's 17,666 points popularity score. After all, the Du family was very famous and could be considered a wealthy family in Blue Pole Star City. Most importantly, Du Mo had always been single, so every girl had a chance. After Du Mo were Mu Hua, Yong Bang, and Dongfang Lian. Each of them had about 13,000 popularity points. This was what annoyed Dai. Among the 43 students, Zhang Jure, who was ranked 42nd, had a popularity score of 5,400 points. However, Dingming only had 4 points. Out of these 4 points, 3 of the votes were cast by Dai, and the other 2. It was unknown who had contributed the other vote. It was really shabby. Regarding this, the stadium was filled with discussions. Who is this guy? He only has 4 points. Dingming? I've never heard of this person. Yeah, I've never heard of him either. For points of popularity is too weak, right? He's probably just there to make up the numbers. Brother, you're a bit pitiful. However, at this moment, in the induction cabin in the virtual hall, Dingming had already received a notification from the system. Students, the certification exam will begin in 5 minutes. Please make your final preparations. Those who are not ready will be tested in 10 minutes. The first test is Origin Ability Index. The test time is 10 minutes. Please make your preparations. 5 minutes passed very quickly. The tens of thousands of people in the audience area immediately burst into cheers. This was because most of the names had begun to glow. This meant that the participating students had already activated their basic origin points and began to increase their origin ability. Without even thinking about it, each name had an overall score of 100,000 points. 100,000 points were equivalent to 100,000 points of Origin Ability Index. This was a necessary quality for a beginner-level War Elder. After 100,000 points, each name had a different increase in score. Some were fast, some were slow, some were explosive, and some were steadily increasing. Everyone stared at the field without blinking. Among them, Zhang Hai was undoubtedly the most eye-catching. His Origin Ability Index showed an explosive increase. 100,000 points, 200,000 points, 300,000 points, 400,000 points. This increase was no less than 923,002 points before it stopped. It was without a doubt the highest in the field. First place, Zhang Hai, 923,002 points. Second place, Sun Shirling, 806,733 points. Third place, Liang Yaran, 799,929 points. Fourth place, Song Jiehui, 545,645 points. Fifth place, Du Mo, 239,699 points. Sixth place, Mu Hua, 204,500 points. Seventh place, Yong Bang, 198,848 points. Eighth place, Dongfang Lian, 152,884 points. Ninth place, Dai Ningxing, 100,283 points. Looking at this ranking, the transit string in the VIP area of the North Viewing platform was very satisfied. This year's Starlight exam was indeed fierce. There were 3 advanced war reverends and 1 intermediate war reverend. This had already surpassed the previous 3 exams. Horse Gallop also smiled and nodded. I already said that High E is first place. All right, where's that Dingming brat who is infatuated with love? Dingming's ranking was still 43rd because his overall score did not change at all. It was still an eye-catching 0 points. What's going on? What is Dingming doing? He was anxious. Don't panic. Little Ming Ming definitely hasn't used her origin ability yet. Aaron comforted her. Su Qianqian agreed, that's right. Little Ming Ming's ability must be very powerful. It will increase by a lot in a while. Although the three of them had seen how powerful Ding Ming was, the surrounding people began to mock him again. I already said that this guy was just there to make up the numbers. Sure enough, it's still 0 points. The exam lasts for 10 minutes. It's already been 5 minutes. Is he not going to increase his ability? Is he a backdoor entrant? He doesn't even have the basic strength of a war venerable. Is he embarrassed to use his origin ability? Brother, you're a bit pitiful. Actually, Ding Ming was asking Little Rascal for advice. If I use my origin ability now, it will be recorded by the Kijia server. Will the basic ability be exposed? Little Rascal said, no, we've already checked the data. The Federation and the Empire do not have the Diamond Star technique. Even if they do, it will be encrypted. The outside world will never know. Ding Ming said, then can I use it without worry? Xiao AI said, you don't have to use your full strength. The 8th point is not yet mastered. It will take time and energy to strengthen. However, the first few points can be used at full strength. Ding Ming said, okay. As soon as he said that, someone in the audience began to exclaim, it's rising, it's rising. That Ding Ming is finally rising. Dai, Yi, and the others immediately looked over and saw that Ding Ming's name was finally changing color. It became a dazzling red, the symbol of the school of thermodynamics. Whoosh! Most people in the audience suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Ding Ming's score was 367844. His origin ability index had risen by more than 300,000 points. Just by looking at the increase, one could tell that Ding Ming's foundation was quite solid. However, before anyone could be surprised, his name changed again with a whoosh, and his score changed again. 500,000 points. Even Tengma was a bit surprised. This score wasn't high, but was accurately controlled at 500,000 points. There was a lot to be said for this score. Then, a scene that shocked the audience finally appeared. Ding Ming, 600,000 points, 700,000 points, 800,000 points, 900,000 points, 1 million points. When the score exceeded 1 million points, the audience erupted into earth-shattering cheers. In the history of Starlight University, Ding Ming was the only one who had broken through 1 million points in the first test. Ding Ming had directly broken a record. This meant that Ding Ming had the basic strength of a beginner combat master. Didn't you say that this guy just went up to make up the numbers? F***CK. My mouth is asking for a beating. I misjudged him. Hammer's connections. He's a real expert. Brother, you're not miserable. It's me who's a bit miserable. Ding Ming's score didn't stop. Instead, it continued to increase steadily. Ever since he broke through 5 million points, the audience became abnormally quiet. Everyone stared at the name Ding Ming. Everyone was curious as to where this guy's limit was. Chapter 306. Swish, swish, swish. Ding Ming's score was still rising, but after a while, Little Rascal stopped. It's about time. Just a little bit will do. If Jiang Hai and the others heard this, they would probably vomit blood. How could the others live with such a terrifying score? During this period of time, he had absorbed the reverse source crystal's energy twice, causing each point to be strengthened to an unprecedented degree. Now, Ding Ming had only used the first 6 points of energy, and his final score was fixed at 2 million points. This score was enough to show disdain for the audience and completely shocked everyone, including Cheng Jin and the group of mentors in Center 2. Everyone was sitting on the spectator's stand and looked at each other. How did this kid train all this time? 2 million points. Could it be that this kid had been hiding it all this time? He didn't hide it before, but now he was hiding it. On the north stand, Transit String looked at Tung Ma beside him. Old Tung, do you think Hai is strong enough now? Tung Ma was already dumbfounded. A 21-year-old Esper with an origin ability index of 2 million points. This was something that only happened a few times in the history of the Federation. If such a person isn't a genius, then who is? However, he still wasn't convinced and argued, the data doesn't mean anything. This is just the beginning. The hard part is yet to come. He didn't speak carelessly. Next was a series of detailed and strict evaluation of reaction speed, operation speed, martial arts, secret books, and so on. In fact, this test was similar to the one in the Norse Empire. The only difference was that this test was absolutely confidential to this batch of students. The outside world could only see the score. Ding Ming and the other scores began to rise. Most of them were increasing in increments of 100,000 points, but Ding Ming's score was increasing very slowly. It was basically increasing at the rate of 20,000 to 30,000 points. However, his popularity value had increased by 30,000 points. Presumably, many people present were shocked by his explosion just now. The first stage of the test came out after 10 minutes. First place, Jiang Hai, 3021, 142 points. Second place, Sun Sherling, 273, 4536 points. Third place, Liang Iran, 272, 1119 points. Fourth place, Du Mo, 256,569 points. Fifth place, Song Jiahui, 229,699 points. Sixth place, Ding Ming, 2,200,000 points. Seventh place, Yongbang, 215,6765 points. Eighth place, Mu Hua, 214,888 points. Number 9, Dongfang Lian, 200,1230. This ranking allowed Jiang Hai to return to the top of the list, and he was far ahead of the rest. Du Mo climbed to 4th place, and Ding Ming fell to 6th place. Actually, those who were observant could tell that Sun Sherling and Liang Iran were on par with each other. Song Jiahui, Ding Ming, Yongbang, Mu Hua, and Dongfang Lian were all on the same level. Galloping Horse laughed again. Like I said, the hardest part is yet to come. The transit string did not answer. She was also secretly wondering why Ding Ming's score could not go up. Could it be that his martial arts skills were not solid enough? In fact, what she didn't know was that Ding Ming didn't use anything in this series of tests, which meant that he gave up on these tests. He wasn't stupid enough to expose his trump card in exchange for such meaningless points on the leaderboard. Little Rascal said, "Oh right, there's still one test that can be tested." Ding Ming asked, "Which one?" Little Rascal said, "You still have to test your physical fitness. The last time you tested it in the Empire, it was a 1. You can try it again this time. It should have improved quite a bit." Xiao AI also echoed, "Your training on planet KV-303 and Flying Star City has also made me very curious. How much has your body's bearing capacity grown? This time, you can use this opportunity to test it so that we can determine the steps for your training in the future." Ding Ming nodded and said, "All right, then let's test my resistance." As soon as he began to exert his strength, the spectator area began to boil again. Su Qianqian suddenly cheered, "Sister E, look, your little Mengming's name has lit up again." Dai E focused her gaze and saw that the 2 words Ding Ming at the edge of the open space suddenly glowed with 7 different colors. Furthermore, they were rising crazily. These colors would only appear when the system was evaluating a certain special test. In other words, Ding Ming was currently displaying some kind of outstanding talent. With another whoosh, Ding Ming's overall score changed again. At this moment, the tens of thousands of people in the audience let out a wow at the same time. This was because Ding Ming's score was now displayed as 370,000 points. In the office of Training Center Number 2, Cheng Jin also opened his eyes wide in front of the screen and shouted, "How did this kid's score increase by 7 million points all of a sudden? And it's even a round number. This is precisely controlled. Does anyone know?" The other instructors helplessly shook their heads. Duan Fengyang spread his hands and said, "Old Cheng, it's not like you don't know the rules. We can't enter the venue. Also, I just checked the internal data." Ding Ming chose to block everyone, so no one can see his test results. Huabai muttered, "There are only 3 tests that are easiest to score on: Origin Energy, Special Skills, and Physical Fitness. There was no need to talk about origin energy. The first test was definitely origin energy. However, Ding Ming didn't seem to have any secret manuals, so there was only one possibility left. What Ding Ming had just tested was physical fitness. Hua Bai's guess wasn't wrong. At this moment, inside the sensor pod, Ding Ming had already heard the results of the system's test. Student number 43, your current physical fitness is S rank. Your specific level is 1 star, level 15. Little Rascal immediately cheered. Coconut. Ding Ming really was forced out. Xiao AI sighed. No wonder. This explains why he was able to advance by leaps and bounds in Flying Star City. ACT 5570, keep it up. The system's voice said, students, the first phase of the test has come to an end. The second phase of the test will officially begin in 30 minutes. Please select the auxiliary interface and select your supplementary materials according to the rules. The selection time is 15 minutes. Please prepare as soon as possible. The system's voice said, student number 43, your results in the first phase of the test were excellent. Your total score is 370,000. Your current ranking is first. Your popularity score is 28,299. Your current ranking is 7th. Your overall evaluation is Beginner Origin Energy Combat Master. Please continue to work hard. I wish you an excellent result in the second phase of the test. Ding Ming wasn't too surprised by this. This was within his expectations. What a joke. He had absorbed the pure energy of the inverse source crystal twice, and had even refined it thoroughly. It would be a shame if he didn't reach the Combat Master standard. However, what he was most concerned about right now was the auxiliary interface. The second phase of the test was a challenge. For the sake of fairness, everyone could choose the equipment they liked. Of course, the equipment was also limited. You could only choose one piece of equipment of each type, and it had to be of the same type. For example, you could only choose one long-range technological device. Similarly, you could only choose one suitable cold weapon. Ding Ming's choice was a sharp spirit blade. This thing was a long sword that could be imbued with energy. It was very simple and easy to use, and it was simulated by the server. Apart from this, Ding Ming didn't choose any tactical equipment like the heat ray gun, explosion-proof shield, or dazzling bullet. He believed that the other students wouldn't choose that either. Battle Reverend level Origin Energy users didn't need these things, and they didn't fear them at all. Next was the second phase of the test. This was the beginning of the main event. The first phase of the ranking was just for the Superpower Center to verify your level and serve as a reference. However, the second phase of the challenge was different. Every student had 10 challenges. You could choose one student to challenge. Winning a match would earn you 3 points, losing 1 point, and drawing 2 points. Winning 3 matches in a row would earn you 20 points. 5 matches would earn you 50 points, and 10 matches would earn you 100 points. Winning a match would earn you 2 points. Winning 3 matches in a row would earn you 8 points. Regardless of whether you won or lost, as long as you fought 3 matches in a row, you wouldn't be able to accept any more challenges. You had to rest for 1 match, and the system would automatically restore you. This meant that you had to have the foundation to fight 3 matches in a row. As for the competition map, it was up to the challenger to choose. There were more than 1,200 maps, and they basically covered any scene that could be encountered during the battle. This rule seemed a little strange, but it actually provided a very good opportunity for those students who were ranked at the bottom in the first phase. This was because this was a test of your vision, judgment, strategy, operation, and other abilities. Just as Galloping Horse had said before, the numbers didn't mean anything. Actual combat was the most important. Not only did you need to have strength, but you also needed to use your brain. At this moment, the challenge had yet to start, but the spectator area was even more lively. In the VIP seats in the north stands, Cartel finally appeared. On the way here, the old man had already learned about the situation in the first phase through the wristwatch. Therefore, as soon as he entered the spectator area, he shook his big head without hesitation and mocked Cartel mercilessly. Galloping Horse, didn't you say that Ding Ming is still a little inferior to Jiang Hai? What do you mean by entering the headquarters directly? He is a little young, but after 5 or 6 years of training, he can at least be responsible for a small team. I don't think that's necessary. The young master of the Jiang family can't even be compared to a refugee. He is very suitable to be a laborer. You? Galloping Horse was very angry. He had boasted about this, but Ding Ming had mercilessly slapped him in the face in the first phase. As an Origin Energy warrior, he was actually more aware of Ding Ming's performance in the first phase. Ding Ming's 2 explosive numbers showed that there were 2 possibilities about Ding Ming. The first possibility was that Ding Ming had a strong foundation and was weak in other aspects, but he had some special abilities. The second possibility was that Ding Ming had a strong foundation and was hiding his strength. He didn't fully cooperate with the system during the test. The possibility of the second possibility was almost negligible. Who would dare to be sloppy in such a heavyweight evaluation? This was a major event that concerned one's future and destiny. Needless to say, everyone would do their best. However, as the old saying went, what was the use of having a high score? Winning was the most important thing. Thus, Galloping Horse rolled his eyes at Cartel. Let's wait and see. Cartel didn't care. The result will be the same anyway. Let's just watch. I came here today specifically to see what the point giver looks like. Chapter 307. 30 minutes of preparation time passed quickly. By this time, all the names in the center of the arena had been retrieved and returned to the empty space. All the audience had to do now was wait patiently. Everyone was discussing who the first challenger would be. Naturally, the most discussed one was Ding Ming. After all, he was the first in the first stage of the competition. Everyone was curious about where this unknown Ding Ming had come from. Do you think little Meng will be challenged? Su Qianqian was a little worried. That's for sure. Irene was also worried. The first in the ranking was a hot favorite and would definitely be targeted by everyone. Dai, he was very relaxed at first, but now his expression changed again. The arena had started to change, which meant that the first challenger had already chosen a map. The map showed a shabby temple that stood on top of a mountain. The lighting was dim, and it was raining heavily. The rain dripped down from the holes in the roof of the temple, and the temple was muddy. Of course, in the eyes of the audience, the temple was only the size of a palm and was located in the middle of the arena. This meant that the challenger would fight around the temple. Who would this challenger be? The system had already shown the subtitles. Yong Bang versus Ding Ming. No wonder Dai Yi's expression changed. She was annoyed whenever she mentioned Yong Bang. Obviously, Yong Bang was not satisfied and had been trying to teach Ding Ming a lesson. This exam was a good opportunity. If he defeated Ding Ming, not only would he gain more points, but he would also regain his confidence. In the future, he would be able to speak more confidently in front of Dai Yi. This was not impossible. In such an important exam, everyone was performing above their usual standards. It was hard to tell who would win or lose. At this moment, Ding Ming's mirror image had appeared halfway up the mountain. He walked slowly along the mountain path in the rain, but Yong Bang was nowhere to be seen. Ding Ming soon arrived at the entrance of the temple. He did not go in, but just stood there in the rain. What is he doing? The audience was confused. Dai, he said quietly. He must have found Yong Bang. Sure enough, Ding Ming murmured after a while. Do you feel tired standing or squatting? No one answered him, and Ding Ming stopped asking. He stood alone in the rain at the gate. After another 3 minutes, he continued, Are you tired or not? Still, no one answered him. Ding Ming continued to stand in the rain and ask questions. After asking for the 5th time, a figure finally jumped off the beam behind the gate. It was Yong Bang. Yong Bang looked very angry. The reason why he chose this map was because he wanted to launch a sneak attack the moment Ding Ming entered the door. Who knew that Ding Ming would be so sneaky as to not come in? Let's see how long you can squat there. When did you discover me? Yong Bang asked angrily. Ding Ming was too lazy to answer him. This kind of question was too stupid. He didn't want to answer it. With the high-dimensional view created by telekinesis, even if Yong Bang turned into an ant hiding in a crack, he would still be able to see him. Yongbang seemed to have noticed Ding Meng's disdain. He said angrily again, I advise you to leave Miss Dai. I've seen a lot of scammers like you. Don't think that just because you've obtained citizenship, you can openly swindle people. Refugees love nothing more than to scam people. This was a classic example of playing petty tricks. He knew that tens of thousands of students were paying attention to this exam. He deliberately said this to discredit Yongbang. Sure enough, the gossipy souls of countless audience members were ignited. Damn, a scammer? It can't be, right? Miss Dai? Is it Dai? Miss Dai is with a refugee? Are you serious? Is there something going on between this guy and Miss Dai? What a piece of shit. Brother, you're a little pitiful. This bastard, Dai, he was furious. How dare he say this in public during an exam? Yongbang's strategy was not wrong. He just wanted to affect Ding Meng's mood. Once Ding Meng was distracted, he would have a chance of winning. Unfortunately, Ding Meng was as still as a statue in the heavy rain. He did not even open his mouth, let alone move. He just looked at Yongbang like he was an idiot. You don't dare to admit that you're a scammer, do you? Yongbang smiled proudly. Do you dare to say that you're not a refugee? Ding Meng finally opened his mouth. There's only one thing I'm curious about. Yongbang frowned. What is it? Ding Meng said. Are you the one challenging me? Or am I the one challenging you? Of course, Yongbang would challenge him. However, Yongbang only talked and did not fight. According to the rules, if Yongbang did not win after 15 minutes, the system would judge Ding Meng as the winner. Shut up. Yongbang scolded him. You were lucky that day. Today I'll show you what the real shadow of the soaring dragon is. Ding Meng suddenly stretched out his index finger and middle finger and shook it at him. Yongbang was a little surprised. What are you doing? Ding Meng said calmly, 2 points. What he meant was that he was going to take 2 points from Ding Meng and that Ding Meng was here to give him points. No one could stand such an insult. Yongbang was furious. You're courting death. His strategy was to enrage Ding Meng. Instead of Ding Meng being enraged, Yongbang was the one who got angry first. However, he did not manage to use his shadow of the soaring dragon because Ding Meng did not give him a chance at all. In the eyes of the audience, they could not see how Ding Meng made his move. They could only see a fiery red energy wall appear out of nowhere and push toward Yongbang like a mountain. It looked like a wall, but it was not a wall. It looked like a wave, but it was not a wave. It really felt like a flood. Holy SH*T. Is that the Holy Radiance Flame formation? Holy SH*T. It's so big. It's at least at the 5th level of the peak realm, right? Holy SH*T. I can't see anything. Brother, you're a little pitiful. Yongbang was not just a little pitiful, he was very pitiful. The audience could not see his figure at all. They could only see the surging red water drowning him. Not only did the red water drown him, but it also flattened the temple behind him. 5 seconds later, the entire mountaintop had turned into a sea of fire. Countless raindrops fell on it and turned into steam. Whoosh! A white light rose. Needless to say, this was definitely the mirror image being retrieved by the system. Yongbang was actually killed by Ding Meng in an instant. The system's words in the illusion were neat and tidy. Ding Meng wins, plus 2 points. There was no cheering in the audience. Instead, there was a chorus of wow. Anyone could hear the unified tone. Tens of thousands of people were shocked. 1 second, a real 1 second. Yongbang was turned into ashes. In the north stands, Transit String and Tengma were not surprised this time. Instead, they both had serious expressions on their faces. This was because they could tell that Ding Meng's martial arts realm was extremely exaggerated. This was especially so for Transit String. She knew very well that Ding Meng had not used his full strength. If he had used his full strength, even she would not have been able to block it. Ding Meng was truly a talent. Moreover, he was so young. There was a lot of value in nurturing him. Transit String secretly turned on his wristwatch and once again pulled up Ding Meng's detailed information. The Starbow Group's Rainbow program this time was to nurture young rookies below the age of 30. Cartel laughed again. So, this is what a point giver looks like. He's a little young, but after 5 or 6 years of training, he can at least be a laborer. What do you think, Tengma? Shut up. Tengma was a little annoyed. He was indeed worried about his nephew. Dingming was not the type of person who could only train but could not fight. At this moment, Dingming, who was in the sensor cabin, received a silent voice transmission. Dumo's voice came through. Dingming. The first 2 stages of the examination allowed students to talk to each other during non-challenge times. Dingming knew that Dumo was usually calm and steady. There must be a reason for him to call at this time. Dumo, what's the matter? Dumo's voice sounded a little worried. Dingming, be careful. I have a feeling that Jiang Hai and the others will team up to deal with you. Actually, Dingming had considered this problem before. Thus, Little Rascal's suggestion was that no matter who the first opponent was, he should immediately attack and kill them instantly. Then he could go and challenge the others. However, Dumo had good intentions. Dingming quickly replied, Dumo, thank you for your concern. I'm fine. Dumo said, among the top 10 students, only you and I are from center number 2. Dingming was a little surprised. The others are from center number 1. Dumo said, except for Liang Yuran, who is from center number 3, the others are all led by Jiang Hai. Be careful. They may team up to plot against you. I understand. Dingming gently hung up the communication. As soon as he hung up, the system sounded again. Student number 43, student number 12 has issued a challenge to you. Please accept. Student number 12 was Muhua. He had chosen a map called Hero Thief Jungle. Muhua was not much stronger than Yongbang. Yet, she dared to challenge him. This made Dingming a little surprised. However, there was no time to think about it. A white light flashed in front of him, and he was teleported to the center of the map. This was a huge and ugly forest. Not only were the trees thick, but their leaves were also very lush. A single leaf was enough to wrap around a person. The ground was covered with thorns, and the ground was wet and muddy. The sky was dark, and there was not a single ray of light. Just based on the choice of map, Muhua was much stronger than Yongbang. Dingming thought that this Muhua was very likely a light-speed origin ability user because the environment in front of him was very suitable for a sneak attack. Xiao AI analyzed. It might be more than that. He should have some special ability. Little Rascal said, I've detected the presence of poisonous gas in the forest. Xiao AI said, it's fine. It's within the immunity range of ACT 5570. Dingming nodded and slowly advanced through the weeds. The audience was secretly amazed. 2 challenges had been issued, and both challengers had quietly hidden away. Instead, it was the challengers who took the initiative to search for them. Chapter 308. Muhua's hiding spot was very clever. He was crouching under a giant tree. The tree was lush with leaves, and there was a rock hiding under the tree, making it very difficult to be discovered. Moreover, in front of the rock was a very hidden swamp. He had practiced this map countless times in the virtual reality hall. He was familiar with every blade of grass and every tree as if they were his own body structure. His instructors had also unanimously agreed that he was the most lethal in this environment. Unfortunately, his opponent was Dingming. Dingming's telekinesis vision had already turned this map as bright as day. In Dingming's eyes, Muhua looked as if he was naked. He thought that he had hidden himself well, but in reality, he had already been exposed to Dingming's vision. Muhua soon sensed an extremely powerful heat wave coming from the other side of the swamp. Clearly, Dingming was coming in this direction. Muhua was not in a hurry. He was also very patient. He would wait for the best opportunity to strike. This was also the heavenly rule of the light speed type: kill in one hit. However, he soon felt that something was wrong. Although Dingming's waves were strong, the distance between them did not decrease. Dingming seemed to be stagnant. When he quietly lifted a corner of a leaf, he was surprised to find that Dingming was actually standing still at the edge of the swamp. He raised one hand and opened his palm. Countless wisps of smoke gathered into his palm from all directions. It looked like he was absorbing the miasma in the swamp. Muhua was a little dumbfounded. He did not expect that not only was Ding Ming not afraid of the miasma, he was even able to absorb it. Muhua's mind worked very quickly. He knew that all obstacles and disguises were useless against Ding Ming. At this moment, he no longer hesitated. He stood up decisively and raised his hand. He was using a short bow. As soon as the bowstring was pulled, a bright light shone in the forest. 3 alloy arrows shot out like 3 bolts of blue lightning towards Ding Ming. "Careful, something's wrong," Little Rascal warned. Originally, Ding Ming was prepared to receive the arrow head-on, but as soon as Little Rascal spoke, he decisively stepped aside and the arrow immediately shot into the depths of the forest. However, at this moment, Muhua, who had been hiding behind the rock, had disappeared. Ding Ming reacted quickly and dodged to the side again. The 3 arrows that had originally flown away suddenly turned back and transformed into 6 blue lights that shot towards him from different angles. Ding Ming was slightly shocked and quickly dodged to the side. This time, he saw it clearly. Muhua's transient steps was different from a normal person's. He moved dozens of meters away from the edge of the rock and appeared behind Ding Ming. Then, he knocked his bow and shot 3 more arrows. Muhua's bow and arrows were very peculiar. The last 3 arrows collided with the first 3 arrows, so 6 arrows shot out at the same time. When Ding Ming dodged the 6 arrows, he flashed back to his original position and shot another 3 arrows at the same time. This time, there were 9 arrows flying at the same time. To be honest, for the War Sovereign, this kind of attack was nothing special. However, the beauty of it lay in the fact that each time Muhua's attacks overlapped, not only did the arrows' flight paths become more complicated, but the origin energy attached to the arrows also increased. In the eyes of the audience, the entire swamp seemed to be enveloped by an invisible force field. In this force field, countless blue arrows were flying randomly, like dancing snakes, like falling stars, like a rain of flowers. It was truly dazzling and dazzling. On the other hand, it was Ding Ming who was struggling to deal with it. He used all sorts of difficult moves like sidestepping, throwing, leaning back, rolling, running, and dodging. It seemed that it was becoming more and more difficult for him to dodge. Su Qianqian couldn't help but sigh. Muhua is usually so frivolous. I didn't expect him to actually have some skill. Dai and Irene's expressions were very serious. For people at their level, they couldn't figure out how Ding Ming could break through this arrow formation. In the north stands, the transit string also nodded in praise. Not bad. It's really commendable for someone to be able to train the light speed element to this level. Galloping Horse, however, shook his head. No, if this continues, it won't be good for him. Oh, the transit string was curious. However, this time, it wasn't Galloping Horse who replied to her. Cartel, who was beside him, laughed. It's precisely because he's a light speed element that these kinds of flashy moves are the most dangerous. The reason is simple. You won't be able to last long. Cartel and Galloping Horse's judgment was completely correct. Muhua currently had the upper hand, but in reality, he was becoming more and more anxious. He didn't underestimate Ding Ming. He attacked with all his strength right from the start. Ding Ming's solitary swift steps and miraculous arrow shadow were martial arts that were very difficult to obtain. He had also practiced them quite well. Normally, if someone could dodge 3 rounds of his arrow rain, he would be considered an expert. But now, Ding Ming had already dodged 11 rounds of arrows. In other words, there were currently 33 arrows bombarding Ding Ming. If Ding Ming still managed to dodge 15 rounds of arrows, then Muhua would reach his limit. If Ding Ming still managed to dodge them, then Muhua's good days would come to an end. Now it was the 14th round. The sky full of arrows seemed to have grown eyes as they flew behind Ding Ming's, but even Ding Ming found it somewhat difficult to dodge them. Seeing that Muhua was still using solitary swift steps, Ding Ming also gritted his teeth. His figure flashed with a schwa sound from the shore of the swamp to the rocks on the opposite side. His movement caused the audience to cry out in surprise. Aaron's eyes also flickered with brilliance. Everyone had seen that Ding Ming, a thermodynamic origin ability user, was actually using a light speed element martial arts technique. It was obvious that the 6 instructors had taught and modified him, allowing him to successfully grasp the essence of these martial arts techniques. He was actually a thermodynamic origin ability user. Mu Hua gritted his teeth. His figure flashed to the top of a tree and shot out the last 3 arrows. He believed that Ding Ming wouldn't be able to dodge this time no matter what, because all the arrows were closing in from all directions. This was a true killing move. If he didn't die, then he would be crippled. Sure enough, Ding Ming wasn't able to dodge. All the arrows sank into his body. Seeing this scene, Yongbang was so happy that he almost jumped up. He didn't expect that Mu Hua's ultimate technique would actually be Ding Ming's nemesis. However, the next moment he was stunned. These arrows seemed to have nailed Ding Ming to death, but in reality, that wasn't the case at all. There seemed to be an invisible barrier around Ding Ming's body that firmly blocked the arrows flying toward him. All the arrows stopped half a meter away from his body. Tengma finally revealed a surprised expression. How many years has it been since someone was able to cultivate this? Transit String also nodded. Her expression was very serious. Yes, applied telekinesis is indeed a very frightening existence. When she said this, she couldn't help but turn her head to look at Cartel. Her meaning was very clear. You dare to make a bet with me because you relied on Ding Ming's ability. Cartel laughed disdainfully. He thought to himself, you're surprised too early. When you see this applied telekinesis combined with catopter deflection, you'll know what it means to be barren wherever you go. At this moment, an even more shocking scene appeared. Mu Hua, who was originally standing on the treetop, disappeared again. Ding Ming stood motionless on the rock, and dozens of alloy arrows were scattered all over the ground. Ding Ming's gaze fell on the swamp. There seemed to be something moving in the swamp, and it was quickly drilling toward his feet. After a moment, Ding Ming's spirit was lifted, and he couldn't help but shout, "Good!" only to see the rock shatter with a wallous sound. In the midst of the scattered mud and stones, a figure drilled out from the ground and soared into the sky. The blue light was so bright that it was somewhat white. It was simply impossible to see what kind of move Mu Hua had used. The only thing that could be seen clearly was that in the instant the rocks exploded, Ding Ming retreated at top speed. With this retreat, Mu Hua's figure reappeared on the treetop. At this moment, he pulled his bow and nocked an arrow. The arrow was no longer a simple alloy arrow. Instead, it had transformed into an icy blue crystal arrow that was as thick as a tree trunk. The arrow was emitting circles of blue waves. This was clearly his ultimate move. He had saved it for last to deal with Ding Ming. This crystal arrow lit up the entire forest. At this moment, almost everyone's breathing stopped. The huge arrow shot down like a missile. Ding Ming stood where he was and seemed to be stunned. He actually forgot to dodge. Boom! The arrow sank directly into the ground. 2 seconds later, an even thicker and more dazzling beam of light shot up into the sky. The nearby rocks, branches, and soil were all blown away. The swamp shore was completely leveled. As for the people and things in the beam of light, they had long been turned into ashes by the powerful energy. This kind of ultimate move was truly amazing. It was also at this moment that Mu Hua let out a muffled sound. His head was raised high, and a sharp white sword tip pierced through his chest. He lowered his head to look at the sword tip, as if he could not believe that this was real. Thus, he tried his best to turn his head back. He wanted to confirm if it was Ding Ming who had launched a sneak attack from behind. Unfortunately, Ding Ming didn't give him chance. With a chi sound, he withdrew his sword. Mu Hua's mirror image turned into a beam of light and disappeared with a schwa sound. The system's subtitles appeared. Ding Ming wins, +2. Wow. Holy sich asterisk T. Wasn't he killed by the arrow? How did he fly up to the tree? Holy sh asterisk T. This sword is 2F asterisk King Fierce. It directly killed Mu Hua. Brother, you're not bad. You're my idol. I'll give you 10 votes first. Yay. Dai, E, and the other two suddenly danced and cheered. They didn't know how Ding Meng did it, but as long as Ding Meng won, everything would be fine. The entire spectator area was also in an uproar. This year's examination was really exciting. These students actually didn't really support Ding Meng, because what they really wanted to see was Mu Hua's magnificent martial arts skills. However, looking at the enthusiastic cheers of the audience, Jiang Hai's expression became very serious. Currently, everything was still going according to plan, but Ding Meng had far exceeded his expectations. According to his plan, Yongbang would first go up to test Ding Meng. Yongbang would definitely lose, but at least he would be able to see some of Ding Meng's strength. In the end, Ding Meng didn't hesitate to defeat Yongbang in an instant. Yongbang's strength couldn't be seen at all. Then, Mu Hua would go up to challenge him. According to Jiang Hai's prediction, Mu Hua would at least be able to force Ding Meng to use some of his strength. Unfortunately, Ding Meng didn't seem to use any of his true strength. At this moment, Mu Hua's voice sounded in the communication channel. "Hi, is everything okay?" Jiang Hai replied, "Thanks, Mu Hua. At least I can see that this kid has both heat, energy, and light speed. The weapon he chose is an ancient sword, and he also has transient steps. Thank you for your hard work." Mu Hua said, "It's okay. We're all on the same side. We can't let outsiders benefit, right?" Chapter 309. The second stage of the challenge was indeed carried out according to Jiang Hai's plan. After Ding Meng defeated Mu Hua, no one else came to challenge him. At this moment, everyone was challenging Jiang Hai, and this Jiang Hai was indeed strong. He basically defeated all his opponents in an instant. Ding Meng observed his matches with great interest. Du Mo's call came in again, and his tone was even more serious. "Ding Meng, I feel that he is scheming against you." He was naturally referring to Jiang Hai. Ding Meng asked curiously, "How is he scheming?" Du Mo sighed. "Ding Meng, do the math yourself. Other than you and me, if everyone challenged him and he won all of them, or if they deliberately let him win, he would have at least 40 points of being challenged. Plus the 26 points of the reward, he would have 66 points. Then he would challenge others, and if he won 10 matches in a row, plus the reward, he would have 170 points, which would be a total of 236 points. No matter what, you would never be able to surpass him. Do you find it strange now that no one has challenged you? It's not because you are strong, but because they have discussed it beforehand." Ding Meng reacted. "Do you mean that Yongbang and Mu Hua are testing me?" Du Mo said, "Yes. If you're easy to deal with, then the others will beat you until you're crippled. You will not be able to make a comeback. If you're not easy to deal with, then no one will challenge you. In the end, your points will not be as high as his." He seemed to feel that he was being too tactful, so he simply told the truth. "Ding Meng, as far as I know, as long as these students lose to Jiang Hai, the Jiang family will give them all kinds of rewards afterward. Take Yongbang, for example. He is definitely not as good as Jiang Hai, but the Jiang family has also promised that as long as Yongbang loses to Jiang Hai, the Jiang family will be willing to give 2% of the profits of the joint project between the Jiang family and the Yong family in Blue Pole Star City. Don't tell anyone about this, but it is absolutely true." Ding Meng was silent and said, "I understand. Thank you." Du Mo sighed. Ding Meng, quickly think of a way. The call was quickly cut off, and Little Rascal immediately shouted, "How can this be? He's obviously cheating." Xiao AI rolled her eyes at her. Even if he cheated, it was still within the scope of the rules. He didn't disobey the rules. There's no such thing as a perfect rule. It's up to you to make use of it. That was indeed the case. No matter how perfect the rules of this world were, with the shrewdness of humans, they could break them down in a matter of minutes. Little Rascal was unconvinced. This Jiang clan is willing to bleed. Huh? They spent so much effort to nurture a champion of the examination. Xiao AI said, "This is called double insurance." Ding Meng muttered to herself, "No, he won't succeed." Little Rascal asked curiously, "Why?" Ding Meng said, "Even if he's ranked first in terms of points, his total score might not necessarily be first. Little Rascal immediately understood. I get it now. The overall score is based on points and popularity. Although the first stage's overall strength score had been finalized, the popularity score had not been turned off. It was still displaying its current value. The current popularity score ranking was as follows. First place, Jiang Hai, 48,955 points. Second place, Liang Iran, 47,889 points. Third place, Sun Sherling, 46,121 points. Fourth place, Du Mo, 32,910 points. Fifth place, Mu Hua Song, 30,717 points. Sixth place, Dongfang Lian, 25,671 points. Seventh place, Ding Ming, 24,222 points. It could be seen that Ding Ming was still far in the lead. Liang Iran and Sun Sherling were still the focus of the students' attention. Du Mo and the other two had attracted attention because of their family background. The reason why Ding Ming was able to occupy 7th place was all because of the popularity he had won in the previous challenge. Is there a way to increase my popularity? Ding Ming asked. Little Rascal's round, smiling face was very sinister. Don't worry, there's definitely a way. Prepare a feast for them. Ding Ming, listen to me from now on. The challenges were still ongoing. Just as Du Mo said, almost everyone was challenging Ding Ming. Surprisingly, no one was challenging Ding Ming. This pattern was quickly discovered by Cartel. He couldn't help but say angrily, Hey, Tamar, isn't it a little inappropriate for your nephew to do this? Tamar was puzzled. What do you mean by inappropriate? Love addict, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Stop pretending. Cartel was a little angry. Everyone is challenging your nephew, but no one is challenging Ding Ming. Don't you think it's strange? Thomas said, What's so strange about that? In everyone's heart, High E is the strongest. If they don't challenge the strongest, are they going to challenge someone weaker than them? Cartel was speechless by his twisted logic. Transit string continued, but no matter how they challenge, High E and Ding Ming will definitely fight. This was the truth. As long as Ding Ming and Jiang Hai had a brain, they would definitely challenge each other as their last opponent. This was because whether or not they could achieve 10 consecutive victories was the deciding factor. They weren't the only ones who thought of this. Dai, E, and the other two were also secretly discussing this. Now, as the competition continued, the rankings were changing drastically. However, no matter how much it changed, Ding Ming's 4 points didn't change at all. First place, Jiang Hai, 56 points. Second place, Liang Iran, 54 points. Third place, Sun Sherling, 54 points. Fourth place, Yongbang, 46 points. Fifth place, Mu Hua, 42 points. Sixth place, Dongfang Lian, 36 points. Seventh place, Dai Ningxing, 36 points. Du Mo was ranked 12th with 30 points. Ding Ming was ranked last with a pitiful 4 points. Looking at the rankings on the big screen, Aaron's expression became thoughtful. Little Ming Ming hasn't started his challenge yet. Therefore, his challenge is very important. Dai Yi understood what she meant. Ding Ming's first opponent would definitely be a heavyweight to gain popularity. Therefore, the probability of him challenging Jiang Hai was very high. Look, it's changing again, Su Qianqian suddenly exclaimed. At this moment, the challenge arena began to change. This map was very familiar to any Starlight student training arena number 1. This was exactly the same as the enclosed training room in the dojo. It was the size of a basketball court, and there was only a square iron cage. Other than that, there was nothing else. As long as one was an origin ability user, they would have seen it before. This map was extremely simple, but everyone was very curious. Choosing this map didn't give the challenger any advantage. Who was the weirdo who chose this map? Soon, the subtitles appeared. Ding Ming versus Sun Sherling. Suddenly, the audience was filled with chatter. Everyone couldn't figure out why Ding Ming didn't choose Jiang Hai and chose Sun Sherling instead. Could it be that Ding Ming also had his eyes on the goddess and wanted to show off? Is that the case? Aaron asked with a grin. No, Dai shook his head firmly. He must have his reasons. The image was quickly transmitted to the training room. The blue alloy walls were very eye-catching. Sun Sherling's outfit was a white t-shirt and a pair of blue jeans. There was a red heart printed on her chest with the letters JS engraved on it. This was her and Jiang Hai's matching outfit. She looked youthful, beautiful, and in high spirits. On the other hand, Ding Meng was still wearing the refugee outfit that Xiao had sewn for him on planet KV-303. There were still patches on his knees. The two's outfits were a sharp contrast. However, no one in the audience dared to look down on this refugee. Everyone was full of anticipation for this refugee's performance. What kind of exciting performance would he put on this time? Sun Sherling had long since perked up. When she saw that it was Ding Meng challenging her, she didn't dare to be careless. The two of them had secretly exchanged blows before. Not only was her attack-type spiritual force unable to control Ding Meng, but it was also suppressed by Ding Meng's telekinesis. Thus, she didn't use any of her spiritual force the moment she entered the arena. She knew that it would be useless. However, what puzzled her was that she didn't feel Ding Meng using any telekinesis. Ding Meng just stood straight in front of her. There wasn't a single fluctuation of energy coming from his body. It was as if he had no intention of making a move. What was going on? Do you know who Zheng Ming is? Ding Meng finally spoke. He went straight to the point as soon as he opened his mouth. Sun Sherling immediately became vigilant. Who is Zheng Ming? It doesn't matter if you don't know him. Let me give you a heads up. Ding Meng spoke bluntly. When the Sun family first migrated to Blue Pole Star City, they lived in the underground city, right? Zheng Ming is your neighbor. Old Zheng's eel noodles, remember? You grew up eating this. Hearing this, Jiang Hai's face sank. This kid actually knew about these secrets. As expected, he had come prepared. Sun Sherling's face was also extremely ugly. What are you trying to say? Ding Meng smiled. Are you sure you want me to continue? Shut up. Sun Sherling flew into a rage. She definitely couldn't let Ding Meng reveal this in front of so many people. Thus, she didn't hesitate to make a move. A crystal blue ice ball immediately appeared in the small training room and quickly sealed Ding Meng inside. Her dark ice force was obviously at the peak level. She could release it at will without any warning. However, although this dark ice force could seal Ding Meng's body, it couldn't seal his mouth. Zheng Ming was originally your childhood sweetheart. However, after you awakened your origin ability, you turned to Ding Meng's embrace without hesitation. As soon as these words came out, the entire audience was in an uproar. No one would have thought that the beautiful goddess Sun Sherling actually had such a past. This Ding Meng was really awesome. He didn't use any big moves when he came up. Instead, he went straight to the point. What's the point of being an origin ability user? Reporters should be your profession. The ice ball began to emit steam and then quickly evaporated. In the blink of an eye, the snow collapsed on the steel plate. Within a few seconds, it was melted into nothingness by the heat emitted by Ding Meng. Sun Sherling wasn't surprised. She was very clear about Ding Meng's origin ability index. However, she didn't expect Ding Meng to be able to melt the dark ice force without even moving. Now, she didn't dare to act rashly. She just stared coldly at her opponent. Ding Meng sneered and said, "When it comes to love between a man and a woman, it's all about mutual consent. No one can force anyone to be with whom. However, you clearly fell into someone else's arms. Why didn't you explain clearly to Zheng Ming?" Chapter 310. Sun Sherling stared coldly at Ding Meng. I explained it to him a long time ago. As she answered, the origin points in her body quickly moved. The entire training room was suddenly covered in a layer of hazy fog. Thin layers of ice also formed on the steel plates on the walls. The layer of ice kept getting thicker and thicker, and it kept spreading. The audience could tell that this was the winter ice dust storm. All the energy was faintly gathering towards the center. Sun Sherling was trying to freeze Ding Meng again. Explained it clearly? Ding Meng sneered disdainfully. But as far as I know, you didn't explain it at all. He still thought that everything was going on as usual. The father and son had worked hard to sell noodles for decades and saved enough money to buy a shop in the Southern District. When he came to propose marriage, you kicked him out mercilessly. You called that explaining it clearly. The audience was in an uproar again. So, this was how Jiang Hai and Sun Shirling got together. Galloping Horse's expression was extremely ugly. He turned to look at Cartel. Is Ding Meng telling the truth? Cartel snorted coldly. As far as I know, this kid rarely lies. It's also impossible for him to lie in front of so many people. If you don't believe me, you can go and investigate. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The layer of ice spread across Ding Meng's body like water. However, Ding Meng was not afraid at all. He still stood there coldly and did not move. The ice element energy quickly froze him into a statue. However, at this moment, the audience in the training room started to sigh. Damn, Jiang Hai still has the face to say that they fell in love at first sight. So, he actually stole her away. That's right. What's Starlight's love story? I think it's more like **T. Is this true or not? I think it's most likely true. God his son, you're in for it this time. Another cracking sound was heard, and the layer of ice on Ding Meng's body instantly shattered into pieces, turning into powder that fluttered in the air. Ding Meng was unscathed. This time, he finally moved. However, it was not the earth-shattering attack that everyone had imagined. Instead, he walked slowly towards Sun Shirling and said expressionlessly, "There is a problem with the procedures for the storefront he bought, and it was taken back according to the law. You should know that it was the savings of 3 generations of his family. It just so happened that the storefront was the property of the Jiang family. It just so happened that it was taken back at that time, and you broke off the engagement." Sun Shirling sucked in a breath of cold air. Even her frigid winter ice dust storm couldn't trap this guy. Inside the sensory cabin, Jiang Hai gritted his teeth in anger. Don't listen to his nonsense. Hurry up and make your move. How could he possibly imagine Little Rascal's nonsense? Ding Meng's every word was being taught by Little Rascal. His father couldn't win against you in terms of logic, and he was even beaten up by you. His savings were also cheated by you. When he returned home, he was so angry that he fell seriously ill. He didn't have the money to treat his illness, and he passed away in less than 10 days. When your Sun family was starving, think about how they helped you. You actually angered an old man to death. You still have the face to stand on the stage of Starlight University and claim that you're the pride of the heavens? Shameless to the extreme. At this point, it was needless to say that more than half of the audience was filled with righteous indignation and anger. Some people even used their wristwatches to search on the International Space Network. There really was a noodle stall called Old Jiangxiel Noodles in Underground City's 309 Street. It looked like Ding Meng was telling the truth. Sun Shirling still didn't answer. She stared at Ding Meng with her almond-shaped eyes. This time, she used all of her telekinesis. She still held back last time, but this time, she unleashed all of her telekinesis. The audience definitely couldn't see this kind of invisible energy wave. Only Sun Shirling herself knew how powerful this mental attack was. The telekinesis was like a star vortex twisting towards Ding Meng. Even if Ding Meng could block it, it would take a lot of effort. Unfortunately, the situation she imagined did not happen. The vortex sank into Ding Meng's body like mud sinking into the sea. It didn't cause any ripples at all. Ding Meng was still slowly walking toward her. He only stopped when he was 10 meters away from her. Then, he slowly stretched out 2 fingers. This hand gesture was the classic 2 points in the match against Yongbang. It meant that he would definitely take away these 2 points. Just when everyone thought so, Ding Meng's tone changed again. I don't want these 2 points. I'll give them to you. Sun Shirling was dumbfounded, and so was the audience. Just what was this guy trying to do? Ding Meng's expression softened a little. You still have a chance to make up for it now. It's not realistic to ask you to go back and get back together with Jiang Ming. At least compensate his family for their loss. Go pay your respects to his father and then apologize solemnly. This shouldn't be difficult for you, right? Sun Shirling might have agreed to this request under normal circumstances. However, at this moment, she didn't dare to agree even if she wanted to. If she did, her popularity points would drop by a lot. In fact, what she didn't know was that her popularity points had dropped from 4,6,121 points to 22,848 points. She had fallen to 7th place. Most of her supporters were male students, but the male students hated this kind of misdeed the most. Dream on. Sun Shirling couldn't hold it in anymore. A blue ice ring appeared around her body, and she floated up. This move directly sent out 3 ice blade-shaped air currents. They looked like ice blades, but they were actually light muslin. They were faintly discernible, and it was very difficult to track them. This was the triple wave of the Terminator mysterious ice palm. She had practiced it to a very high level. This was actually very easy to figure out. At the level of a war venerable, the most powerful martial arts techniques were usually the ones that were practiced first. This was because you used it the most and were the most proficient at it, so it was more powerful. The 3 ice elemental energies rushed toward Ding Meng like 3 ice dragons, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They seemed to want to tear Ding Meng into pieces. Ding Meng gently raised her left hand and gently opened her palm. The 3 ice dragons quickly sank into her palm. Like mud sinking into the sea, Ding Meng was unharmed. Sun Shirling was a little dumbfounded. She had never seen a move that could break the Terminator mysterious ice palm in such a way. Ding Meng was now less than 5 meters away from her. I know that some people don't take the easy way out and just like to get beaten up. Then I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of Brother Zheng. Before she could finish her sentence, Sun Shirling curled up her body and flew backward without any warning. Halfway through her flight, she raised her chin and flew back with her head facing the sky. Everyone saw the second attack clearly. Ding Meng suddenly dodged and hooked her chin with an old fist. She could only fly backward. Ding Meng flashed again and appeared behind her. He swept his leg out, and Sun Shirling flew back like a spinning top. Pa! 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 The only sound that could be heard in the training room was the sound of a critical hit. Ding Meng's figure flashed around the room, leaving only an afterimage when he attacked. However, Sun Shirling did not fall from the air. She was sent flying back and forth 5 times by his punches and kicks. Ding Meng's final attack was the same as the swing punch he used against Mao Zhan on Cypress Planet. He punched her temple. This punch was quite fierce, and it sent Sun Shirling crashing to the ground and sliding back 10 meters. Good hit. Cartel could not help but cheer loudly. When he howled, the students around him also felt very relieved. They could not help but cheer as well. That's right. Good hit. Beat her to death. A bitch like her deserves to be beaten up. This is so satisfying. No wonder the first person he challenged was Sun Shirling. She's really pitiful. It was indeed pitiful. Even though they were in the virtual world of the Kajia server, the mirror image was no different from the real world. When Sun Shirling got up from the ground, her hair was disheveled. Her face was bruised and swollen. At this moment, most of her goddess image had been destroyed, and her popularity had begun to plummet. It would be strange if she was not furious. However, she did not have time to circulate her origin energy because Ding Meng was standing in front of her. He looked at her expressionlessly. Your bones are quite tough. After saying this, he punched her temple again. Sun Shirling, who was in the sensor cabin, saw stars. No matter how much strength she exerted, her mirror image could not get up. Ding Meng, however, hooked his finger at her. Get up. Unfortunately, Sun Shirling was not Mao Zhan. She did not have Mao Zhan's strength and aura. An ice-type origin ability user would be in great trouble if someone got close to them. You're not getting up? Very well. I'll help you get up. Ding Meng's patched knee slammed into her chin. Sun Shirling's head jerked backward, and Ding Meng grabbed her neck and flung her away. Sun Shirling spun in the air once again. This time, Ding Meng did not control his strength. Flame energy rushing fist whistled through the air and struck out with full force. Boom! Sun Shirling's entire body slammed into an alloy steel plate, and a large part of the wall caved in. I'll end your suffering. Ding Ming casually waved her hand, and a long sword appeared at her waist. She unsheathed the sword with a clang, and it transformed into a beam of light that shot towards Sun Shiling like a bolt of lightning. The tip of the sword drilled into Sun Shirling's heart and nailed her to the wall. Of course, Sun Shirling's mirror image disappeared with a whoosh after receiving this fatal blow. The words appeared again. Ding Ming wins, +3. Amazing. The crowd applauded. No one would have thought that Sun Shirling, who no one dared to provoke in school, would be so powerless in front of Ding Ming. Little Ming Ming is so cool. Su Qianqian laughed. Erin also clapped with all her might. Beautifully done. Dai Yi's face was flushed. That's right. We have to embarrass them in front of everyone on this stage. Although the three of them were women, they did not think that Ding Ming's way of torturing people was inappropriate. Since Sun Shirling had done such a disgraceful thing, then she deserved to be beaten up. Needless to say, Sun Shirling's face was ashen. Her popularity score was now at 14,002 points, and she had fallen out of the top 10. Ding Ming's popularity score, on the other hand, had shot up to 34,918 points. He had surpassed Du Mo and was now in 4th place. At this moment, there was someone even angrier than Sun Shirling. Jiang Hai clenched his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. Ding, just you wait. How dare you humiliate my woman like this? I'll teach you a lesson later. You son of a bitch, how dare you torture people like this? How dare you expose my secrets? Jiang Hai was still swearing to himself when something unexpected happened. Chapter 311. The map in the center of the arena didn't change. It was still the same training room, but the words appeared once again. Ding Ming versus Sun Shirling. Damn, the audience was dumbfounded. What was going on? He hadn't played enough? He still wanted to play? Dai Yi and the others were also stunned. Sun Shirling had already been beaten to a pulp, and Ding Ming still wanted to challenge her? Even though everyone was a little suspicious, the words didn't lie. The images of Ding Ming and Sun Shirling in the training room were once again combined. Sun Shirling was prepared this time. Without hesitation, she activated her origin energy and formed a layer of snow mist-like gauze around her body. This was a high-tier ice attribute origin energy defensive technique. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult to shatter. At the very least, it wasn't something that Ding Ming's punches and kicks would be able to break through. Even though she was facing a formidable opponent, Ding Ming lazily gestured with his classic 2 points gesture. The audience was once again curious. Was he going to give up on 2 points again? Was he going to force Sun Shirling to repent? Unexpectedly, Ding Ming laughed coldly and said, "This is the second round." Sun Shirling was stunned. What did he mean? Ding Ming's smile disappeared. I want to challenge you to 10 rounds. Let's see how long you can last. I want to beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy. This was another of his classic psychological tactics. His image in the virtual world definitely wouldn't kneel and beg for mercy. It was more or less possible in the real world. However, it was precisely because he said this that Sun Shirling was determined not to surrender. You're going too far. Sun Shirling's almond-shaped eyes widened angrily, but no matter how wide her eyes were, she still didn't dare to take the initiative to attack. She was already aware of the huge gap between the two of them. Ding Ming's strength had already reached a level that she couldn't even judge. Bastard. Jiang Hai had never expected that Ding Ming would choose Sun Shirling for the second round. His intentions were obvious. He was deliberately humiliating Sun Shirling for Jiang Hai to see. Therefore, it was quite reasonable to say that the second stage of the challenge was all about strategy. You thought that you could trick Ding Ming, but you didn't expect that Ding Ming would be so shameless as to defeat you. In the training room, Ding Ming was not in a hurry to make a move. He believed that Sun Shirling had already been beaten up by him in the previous round, and she was still using snow mist-like gauze. Even if Sun Shirling was completely unharmed, Ding Ming was confident that none of them would be his match. The energy of the inverse source crystal had facilitated the formation of the 8th origin. The terrifying degree of this was simply unimaginable to other war supremacies. Only Ding Meng himself knew how powerful this power was. Therefore, he didn't put snow mist-like gauze in his eyes at all. He directly used his most standard carp leaping over Dragon Gate backhand blade. This was the phaseless blade technique that Yu Xingyang had taught him back then. It didn't matter if he had a blade in his hand or not. As long as it could be used, it was a blade. As long as it was a blade, the opponent would definitely be hit. Gee, some of the sharp-eyed audience members saw it clearly in an instant. When Ding Meng's hand blade hit snow mist-like gauze, it turned fiery red. Obviously, he had cultivated his source energy to the point of perfection. The shield turned into white gas in the blink of an eye. Then, Sun Shirling was sent flying again. This time, she didn't fly backward. Instead, she was sent flying by his hand blade. This, the one who sucked in a breath of cold air, was none other than Jiang Hai. He also saw it clearly. Ding Meng didn't use his hand blade to break the shield. Instead, it seemed to be a strange, secret technique that absorbed the ice energy. Finally, he used a martial technique similar to the collapsing force to send Sun Shirling flying. He felt that he had underestimated Ding Meng. This kid's strength was probably far above that of an advanced war supremacy. Sun Shirling learned her lesson from the last time. She borrowed the force of the attack and slid backward. Then, she circulated her origin energy to the limit and pushed her palms forward. With a whoosh, an astonishing ice dust storm surged out from her palms. This was a torrent made up of countless ice blades, icicles, ice walls, ice swords, and other ice source weapons. The scene looked like an avalanche from an iceberg. It was overwhelming and unstoppable. The audience couldn't see the real appearance of the training room because the entire room was filled with blue-white ice energy. Sun Shirling was still holding back, but after being beaten by Ding Meng like a stray dog in the first round, she didn't want to leave this six-stage cold winter ice dust storm for the final stage. At this moment, either Ding Meng was completely frozen to death, or she was going to continue being beaten up. Sun Shirling's expression was also quite painful. After using cold winter ice dust storm, her palms turned into claws. She placed her claws in front of her chest and slowly closed them together. All the ice energy in the room seemed to be gathering along with her hand gestures, like the wind and snow gradually condensing into solid ice. About 15 seconds later, the audience's vision finally returned to normal from the chaos. The snow and fog slowly dissipated. In the middle of the training room, an ice mountain so blue it was almost purple had taken shape. They could see that Ding Meng was still in the posture of cutting with his hands, but he was completely frozen inside. Sun Shirling heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Ding Meng was sealed in ice, everything would be easy. She raised her palms again, and the light in the training room turned blue again. Faint circles of blue light could be seen in the air as they closed in on the ice sculpture. Everyone knew that Sun Shirling was injecting energy into the ice sculpture. She also knew that it would be difficult for her to kill her opponent on her own. However, as long as she maintained the strength of the ice and drag it out for 15 minutes, the system would automatically declare her the winner. Tingma's face finally showed a hint of joy. That's why I said that numbers don't mean anything. Actual combat is the most important thing. These words were obviously said to Cartel, but Cartel only smiled coldly and didn't reply. He thought to himself, "You're celebrating too early." When Su Qianqian saw that Sun Shirling's winter ice dust storm had trapped Ding Meng, she, who was originally cheering, was scared. "Sister E, is this the result?" In fact, Dai, you didn't know how strong Ding Meng was. She knew that Ding Meng was strong, but as for how strong Ding Meng was, she found that she had forgotten about it during this period of time. Ever since Ding Meng came to Blue Pole Star City, she had fallen into the so-called "a woman in love has zero IQ" state. Every day, except for the fixed cultivation, her mind was basically focused on Ding Meng. As such, she didn't pay attention to the specific stage of Ding Meng's cultivation. As time passed by, Irene's confidence was shaken. She turned her head and said, Ding Meng, is he okay?" "He should be fine." Dai, he was a little nervous. This time, their judgment was wrong. At this moment, Ding Meng could already feel how powerful Sun Shirling's trump card was. Just from the origin energy and realm of this winter ice dust storm, it was nothing to Ding Meng. However, Ding Meng's mistake was that he should not have faced it head-on. This storm was mixed with a very strange and subtle energy. If it did not hit a person's body, it would be very difficult to feel. This ice energy contained a type of origin energy molecules that had a very strong, penetrating ability. Once it hit a person's body, it would quickly enter their bloodstream. From Xiao AI's system vision, Ding Meng could clearly see that these molecules had a diamond-like appearance. They wrapped around all the golden molecules in his body, slowing down the flow of origin energy and preventing him from breaking the ice. "What is this?" Ding Meng couldn't help but ask. Little Rascal immediately explained, "This isn't a cultivation technique, a battle technique, or a secret manual. It's a type of origin energy cultivation technique. Normally, when she strengthens her origin, she would specially refine this type of energy called origin body. Its properties are the same as the origin energy essence you normally absorb. However, she has obviously received guidance from a famous teacher. This type of origin energy molecule can seal off most types of heat origin energy. Normally, she would cultivate the ice element or the hardness element. Heat, light element, and gravity element are not easy to cultivate." At this moment, Ding Meng could also sense that Sun Shirling was stacking her origin energy on the outside through the layer of ice. Little Rascal continued, "However, this Sun Shirling's strength is a little lacking. If her origin body is powerful enough, it can directly reverse the flow of origin energy molecules in your body and find your basic origin. It can form an origin body lock that directly stops the circulation of origin energy. For a short period of time, your origin energy will have to be used to unlock it, so you won't be able to use it in battle." Ding Meng finally understood. "Then how do I break this thing?" Xiao AI continued, "It's very simple. Your origin energy foundation far surpasses hers, so you can directly shatter the layer of ice. However, I don't recommend that, because you have to be challenged 3 times in order to recover your strength. Right now, you've already expended a small portion of your origin energy. In order to avoid a powerful opponent challenging you in the 3rd round, it's best to maintain your origin energy reserves. In terms of your chances of winning, this is the least risky option." Since Xiao AI had already made this suggestion, then there was only one way left to break this frigid winter ice dust storm. 5 seconds later, someone in the crowd cried out in surprise, "Look, there's something. There's something inside the ice." Everyone was startled. When they took a closer look, they discovered that there was a shiny, straight sword inside the layer of ice. Naturally, this was the sword that Ding Meng had requested from the system. The sword wasn't in Ding Meng's hand. Instead, it was slowly breaking through the ice as if it had grown eyes of its own. "Not good. He's using telekinesis." Jiang Hai was secretly anxious. How could Sun Shirling not know this? She was even more aware than Jiang Hai that this was an applied telekinesis. Application-type telekinesis wasn't all that impressive. Its true strength lay in the fact that as an origin ability user advanced in level and the development of their brain, it would develop more functions, including some rare special abilities. Right now, Ding Meng was only a war reverend. If he was a war general, war monarch, or war sage, she wouldn't even be able to think of resisting. When she thought of this, Sun Shirling felt a surge of courage. This time, she didn't open her eyes wide. Instead, her pupils turned into a pure white light. From afar, she looked like a female ghost from hell. Just like the previous frigid winter ice dust storm, the wave of telekinesis came crashing down on Ding Meng. She was determined to freeze Ding Meng in the layer of ice. Moreover, she had to hold on for at least 15 minutes. This was her true trump card. Chapter 312. The reason why Sun Shirling attached so much importance to the application type of psychokinesis was because Ding Meng had yet to learn the systematic knowledge of psychokinesis, while she had received detailed guidance from a famous expert. Psychokinesis and origin energy were universal energies that corresponded to each other and complemented each other. They were both based on the wave-particle duality principle. All matter in the universe had wave-particle duality, which had both particle properties and wave properties. Origin energy and psychokinesis just so happened to correspond to this principle. Origin energy was made up of microscopic particles. As an origin ability user cultivated, it would manifest as a physical substance, such as the origin. Psychokinesis was made up of all kinds of waves that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. For example, radio waves could be used to conduct electricity. Psychokinesis was the general term for all kinds of waves. Its ultimate goal was to control the strings in the universe, because the universe was made up of all kinds of one-dimensional strings. Truly controlling strings was equivalent to controlling the most powerful force. Naturally, strings also had all kinds of types. Sun Shirling's mental attack type psychokinesis was an illusion string that interfered with the brain waves of a person, creating illusions for the opponent. Her psychokinesis seemed very powerful, but in reality, it followed a principle. Her psychokinesis was adapted to the fluctuations of the strings on this channel. Ding Ming's applied psychokinesis could actually be called universal psychokinesis. It could control all kinds of strings in the vicinity. It was the most basic type of psychokinesis. Its only drawback was that it was too weak at the beginning of cultivation, so it couldn't control many kinds of strings. Only when the development of the brain domain reached a very high level would it be able to control more kinds of strings. Frankly speaking, Ding Ming was a late-stage competitor. Once he completely matured, it would be impossible for them to make a comeback. However, psychokinesis, apart from innate talent, was even more important. In the Holy Grail Federation, there might not even be one fluxer among the thousands of war elders. Only when one reached the level of battle monarch or battle general would they be able to cultivate psychokinesis as their origin energy grew stronger. Two fluxers had appeared at the same time in Starlight University's examination. This could be said to be the intangible wealth of the Holy Grail Federation. At this moment, Sun Shirling was using all her strength to launch a spiritual attack. She knew that Ding Ming would definitely use his telekinesis to deal with her. If Ding Ming used his telekinesis to block her attack, her long sword would not be able to break through the ice. Sure enough, Ding Ming's eyes became even more determined. In his vision, the outside world did not exist. All kinds of demons and ghosts were roaring around him. The combination of their voices was not human, not ghost, not song, and not sound. It was harsh and ear-piercing. It was not the voice of the human world at all. He could not describe what it was, but it made him feel uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable. Only a macho man like Ding Ming could still resist. If it was any other origin ability user without any telekinesis, their mental state would probably have long been messed up. Little Rascal gritted his teeth and said, "She really doesn't have the slightest bit of remorse. Let's teach her a lesson." Xiao AI firmly agreed. That's right. Don't get rid of her immediately. Play with her for a bit. The training room suddenly made a slight cracking sound. The sharp-eyed audience could see that a slight crack had suddenly appeared on the surface of the blue iceberg. Croc, croc, croc. The crack gradually widened, extended, and split apart. Croc, 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 croc. Sun Shirling was finally shocked. Spiderweb-like cracks had already appeared on the surface of the iceberg. She was no longer able to resist Ding Ming's origin energy. Finally, after a series of cracking sounds, the iceberg suddenly shattered and turned into a pile of ice shards. Ding Ming walked out from within, completely unharmed. However, Ding Ming's origin energy suddenly weakened greatly. Before Sun Shirling could even react, Ding Ming had already flashed in front of her and mercilessly punched her in the stomach. This was purely an attack with origin energy of the same level, or perhaps even lower. Even so, Sun Shirling still bent over in pain. This time, the iron-willed straight man didn't care about anything else. He directly kneed her in the chin. Sun Sherling's mirror image was once again sent flying. Everyone could see that her front teeth had been broken by the impact. Bam, 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 bam. Ding Meng's mirror image began to flash around the training room again. Sun Sherling was hit here, and they're like a rubber ball. Since you're not going to land on the ground, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to beat you until you're convinced. After more than 10 punches and kicks, Sun Sherling fell heavily onto a steel plate. This time, she was even more miserable than the previous match. Not only was her face bruised and swollen, but her hair was also disheveled. Her nose was bleeding, and it dyed her entire face red. It looked like a vermilion dye painting on her face. How was this the face of a goddess? It was the ugly face of a female ghost. The most infuriating thing was that Ding Meng stepped on her chest with a broken shoe. He looked down at her condescendingly, his face full of disdain. In the office of the No. 2 training center, the internet communication channel of the No. 1 training center was already ringing with an exasperated roar. This is not a challenge at all. It's a complete personal insult. He even exposed her privacy. We strongly protest that this student has no regard for the ethics of the competition. We'll cancel his 2 matches. Hearing this, Cheng Jin, Hua Bai, and the others didn't even bother to lift their eyes. As long as it was within the rules, the system would never accept their protest. Moreover, Hua Bai, Cheng Jin, and Jin Yun had all retired from the battlefield many years ago. It had to be known that the enemies on a battlefield were more than 10 times colder and crueler than this. What was the point of caring about dignity and image in a life-and-death battle? If Sun Sherling couldn't even get past this, then there was nothing to look forward to in the future. Of course, while the instructors could think of this, the students might not be able to understand. Many of the audience also felt that Ding Meng's insult was a little too heavy. No matter what, Sun Sherling was still a great beauty. How could you bear to destroy her like this? At this moment, Ding Meng kicked Sun Sherling into the steel wall again. His voice was full of regret as he said, "Do you know how many years their family has been selling noodles for 3 generations? Every day, they would have to wake up early and work in the dark to make a bowl of noodles for a few star coins. They only had the opportunity to move to the surface after they collected a total of 500,000 star coins. In the end, because you broke your promise, their family was ruined. Beating you up is already giving you preferential treatment." As soon as these words were spoken, all of the sympathizers immediately became staunch supporters of Ding Meng. Although there weren't many poor students in Starlight Academy, it was still the same saying. The eyes of the masses were as sharp as snow. This kind of thing was really disgusting. Seeing that the 15 minutes were almost up, Ding Meng couldn't be bothered to play anymore. He grabbed Sun Sherling's hair and pulled her out of the wall. With a flip of his hand, he threw her backward. A cold light flashed in midair, and Sun Sherling's head was separated from her body. She turned into light and floated away. The snow-white longsword whizzed in a circle and quickly returned. Ding Meng raised the scabbard, and the longsword automatically returned to the scabbard with a kacha sound. Ding Meng's wrist shook again, and the longsword spun in a circle and was fastened to his belt. The subtitles immediately appeared. Ding Meng wins, +3. It was unknown who took the lead, but after a loud shout of "Ding Meng is awesome" was heard, almost the majority of the audience started to howl together. Their voices were orderly and powerful. Ding Meng, Ding Meng, Ding Meng. Dai and the other 2 were also very excited. The 3 beauties also raised their hands and raised their arms, shouting, "Ding Meng, Ding Meng, Ding Meng." When these voices reached Jiang Hai's ears, his face immediately turned pale. As for Sun Sherling, her popularity points had actually fallen to 9,022 points, and she was ranked in the 20s. This score wasn't considered bad, but in the last stage of the exam, no matter how good her performance was, her future was probably bleak. At the very least, the Star Combat League, the performance show, and the entertainment show would definitely be blocked. The image of her being beaten up on the stage would probably be etched in the minds of the talent scouts. On the North Spectator stand, Cartel also joined the cheering army. He waved his hands and shouted, "Ha ha, Ding Meng, you have really made me proud. Ding Meng, you are just a refugee, but a refugee like you actually defeated the Star of the Star Splendor. They can't even be compared to refugees. What kind of proud daughter of heaven are they? They're just trash." Wahaha! Seeing Jiang Hai's deranged expression, Tung Ma's face turned green. He twitched his mouth, but in the end, he couldn't say anything. In this world, if you made a mistake, you had to admit it. If you were beaten, you had to have the right attitude. If you were not as good as others, you had to keep your mouth shut. The transit string had been very calm. At this moment, her wristband had been turned on, and the screen showed the detailed records of Ding Meng's incident. This was the information that the Star Rainbow Corporation's higher-ups had gathered in a short 20 minutes. This information was definitely not the most detailed, but the transit string was still secretly shocked when she saw it. K8 Galaxy, Dead Silent Star, Black Gold Base. Laborers defeated a group of coolies and mercenary captains. Escaped from the ambush army's eyes. Norse Empire's TCP-121 Star Nebula Star region. Piloting a swordfish spaceship to avoid the Falcon spaceship. Finally rescued. Norse Empire's NX-3 DDT-51 Patrol Fleet's Special Mission Executor. Fought in the Falcon spaceship of the Extreme Heaven Corporation and survived. Zhifan Galaxy's Flying Star City. Killed Rinzhan, a high-level warrior of the Celestial Wolf Corps. Led the others to break out of the encirclement and survived. Cypress Grove Planet. Killed Lu Ming, Mao Zhan, Hu Biao, and other beginner-level war venerables of the Extreme Bandit Corps. Led the others to break out of the encirclement and survived. There was no data for these incidents, but it explained one thing. Ding Meng, a 21-year-old war of venerables, not only had great talent, but also grew up through life and death battles. The transit string sighed slightly. The person she wanted to thank the most right now was Su Mengqing. During the Cypress Grove Planet auction event, if it were not for Su Mengqing's discerning eyes, a talent like Ding Meng might have been brought to the Sheng Hao Corporation by Hu Qingji. The transit string turned around and left the stands. She walked towards the VIP passage in the distance backstage. As she walked, she turned on the quantum communication device and said softly, "Dad, I'm at the examination site of Starlight University right now. I have something to report to you. There's a young man named Ding Meng here. I've uploaded all his detailed information. I hope you can authorize it internally. I want to bring him directly back to the headquarters of Starlight University to join our Rainbow 8 training program. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.